All right, welcome everyone to the 10th episode of the Path of Exile community podcast, Faded Connections. We have Ghazzy and BalorMage here today with me. My name is CatmasterOP, and we're going to talk mostly about the Path of Exile 3.5 announcement for the expansion called Betrayal, but also a little bit about the Diablo Immortal announcement at BlizzCon and about the introduction of custom leagues as a feature in Path of Exile. Now, as usual, we're starting with a small introduction round, and since Ghazzy is on here for the first time, I'd like to pass the microphone to Ghazzy and ask, how are you doing, Ghazzy, and what have you been up to in the last league?
In the last league. Hey, thank you for having me. Well, I'm doing all right. I'm surviving. Waiting in suspense for the 21 days, 1 hour and 48 minutes left for the actual fun to begin. I've been doing a lot of things lately, actually. TLDR, I've made a couple of league starter builds, DB and Soul Rest in the Delve League. Didn't actually enjoy the replayability of Delve that much. I think that's mainly because of how burnt out I felt. So to rekindle my spirits for the next league, which I think I've succeeded in, I've actually been playing some World of Warcraft and recently stopped with, more or less. And then now I'm actually playing Fallout 76, which was garbage for the first day. And second day was even worse. Third day was horrible till I reached the main quest line, and I started enjoying it a little bit. So I'm going to give it another shot later tonight and try to be optimistic before leaving the game forever.
What I heard then is, I had a terrible day 3 times in a row. I'm going to try it once more.
I stopped playing World of Warcraft, and you guys know how it feels to go back to PoE at the end of the league, and I played hardcore most of it, and moved over with the last build to softcore to try out a few things, which I felt pretty happy with. I just feel like I don't have anything left that I want to do in PoE till Betrayal comes out right now. So, and I stopped playing World of Warcraft, so the only game I have left right now that I actually hoped was good was Fallout 76. I just keep hoping that if I keep pushing it, if I keep playing it, it might actually turn good. But yeah, this will probably be the last shot the game has for me. I said that yesterday, by the way.
Is it so bad? Because I see a lot of people playing it and they're apparently enjoying it. Like, someone told me it's really cool, but it's not really a Fallout game. But
yeah, I can't agree that it's a Fallout game. Like, if you think about the game in a Fallout sense, then the game is the most atrocious, horrible slaughter you've seen since the Diablo Immortal announcement. And if you look at it for what it is, it's a rather somewhat empty, hollow MMO game with some nice features, but needs a lot of fixes, and it feels more of a beta game. But there are some Fallout stuffs in it, and that's what I found yesterday that has made me decide to go back to it tonight again, because I found this main quest line which was completely insane compared to everything else I've seen in the game so far. And that made me want to see if that quality maintained throughout the quest line, of the main quest line. The side quests are as boring as usual. So I'm hoping I'll encounter as fun encounters tonight. If not, then, it had one golden egg and the rest is shit. So I'm trying to determine if the game is worth the money, so I can tell people, on the stream or YouTube and whatnot, that, you should buy this because of this and this. Right now, it's like, don't buy it because this.
Mm.
how much does it cost, though? Like, is it such a big decision? I have no idea.
60 euros.
What? So much? Okay, yeah. In times where we get 10-act expansion games with regular 3-month leagues and expansions for free, kind of have to think twice about spending $60 up front for enjoying a game.
That's actually I like that topic when it comes to Path of Exile personally, because everyone is saying, oh, but PoE is free to play, and I disagree there. I'm one of those that has this unpopular opinion to say that PoE is not free to play.
Well, they found a very smart no, I interrupted you, I'm sorry, but you gave me space. They found a smart way to make free to play to make pay to play in a way that they can market it as free to play.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, it is free to play if you play solo self-found, right? You don't need more than 4 stash tabs in general, unless you play a very long time, right? But you will eventually be limited. Pay to win is only true when the purchasable quality of life things are exactly that, only quality of life, right? That doesn't make you able to be more effective or better than other people, right? But after a certain amount of time invested, most playstyles, most common playstyles of endgame and whatnot, requires you to trade. Most people that play the game will want to trade, and most people will need more room than 4 standard stash tabs, right? So eventually the game will limit you and you are forced to purchase. However, at that point, you buy them on sale. If not on sale, it's still what, $20? And you don't have to do that till you've invested, I don't know, let's say 100 hours, maybe 150 hours as a brand new player. I think that's pretty fair to say that you can invest that amount of money into a game, because then you've enjoyed a lot of hours already, right? But I can't say that it's 100% free to play anymore, at least.
What say you, Mr. BalorMage?
I mean, I definitely can't say you're not going to need stash tabs if you take the game seriously. If you start playing you can rack up a few hundred hours, and you're going to need stash tabs no matter whether you're playing in a trade league or solo self-found. By the time you're that invested, you're going to need stash tabs.
I mean, imagine you have a little bit of maps and a bunch of currency orbs and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like those things alone covers at least half up to 1 stash tab alone. A few trade items. Let's remove trade items. And
like I've got 290 red maps right now in League.
Yeah, and good luck fitting one.
That's like, I don't actually know how many fit in a normal tab, but I'm pretty sure just my red maps fill up a tab.
Is it 13? I'm pretty sure it's 12 times 12. Something like that. So it's 144 slots per per stash tab.
I couldn't even fit all of my red maps in one tab, let alone all of my maps.
The question is, would you accumulate that many red maps? Would you not, like, if you're, if you knew you were limited by stash tabs, wouldn't you uptrade them or like something?
You would probably make new characters to act as banks.
Yeah,
which is possible. Nuisance, but possible.
It's the furthest from pay. It's the furthest from pay to win of any free game I've ever played.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll say that. I can see them being, you do need to spend a little bit at some point. Like if you're literally at, I can spend $0 ever, you're going to hit a wall somewhere where you're just struggling to progress further. And you can get around it because acquisition's a thing, and you can make alt accounts for free, and you can have alt accounts with acquisition on it. But that's a big pain in the ass.
Yeah, a lot of nuisances just to make it work. But then again, it allows you to test the game out, that if you enjoy it, then you can indirectly buy it, so to say.
I would say that
the limiting.
At least 99% of people that get to the point where they would actually need to buy stash tabs will be very happy to do so.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I completely agree about that. I just feel like a lot of people are screaming rather loudly saying PoE is a free-to-play game. It is a free-to-play game, but I think because of the way it's designed, I just feel like at a certain point, you have to purchase something to continue playing.
But could you think of a possible solution to that? Because I can't. Not a good one. Because I've thought about this before.
You mean a solution that works for both the developers and for the players?
Yeah.
I mean, the only way to get rid of, work around it would be to somehow achieve stash tabs in other ways, but that would be counterproductive for the developers. I mean, and not doing it won't be a solution for the players. So, I mean,
I don't have a better overall solution. Like, I feel like the way they've done it has the minimal impact, requires not very much money, and gives you quite a broad area of time at the beginning of playing the game before you have to actually decide whether you want to spend anything.
I think the only way that would pseudo work for it would be to allow any type of stackable items to infinitely stack. So you can have one Exalted Orb corner in a stash tab, which stacks thousands and thousands, right? That would be a pseudo solution to it. But again, that would also emphasize, no matter if it's a smaller impact on the developers, it would still be counterproductive for the developers.
Yeah.
That would
Well,
remove the need for currency-only stash tabs and whatnot.
I'm impressed by how we didn't get past the introduction and we already fully went off topic.
We did.
Yeah, about that. Yeah, this podcast
No, but
is gonna last 1 hour. Let's just expect 4
What?
at least.
But no, it's a good topic. It's just one that has been talked about many times, and where I don't think we can produce new opinions, or like we can just reiterate what has been said before. So I'd like to move on a little bit and to ask Balor what he's been up to in the last week or two, playing custom leagues.
Yeah, we started custom leagues, and I don't remember what mods I've got on, but they're hard. We've gone -20 res, monster speed, monster damage, elemental damage, 40% monster life, no magic, no rare, items dropping, and hardcore. And it's been a little. It's been very fun. I think someone made it to maps yesterday on day 4. Which I'm impressed with, because I haven't made it to maps yet. It's the hardest mod on that entire thing is actually no gear dropping. No gear dropping hasn't just meant no gear dropping and that you've got to craft everything. It also means that I've upgraded alterations to like the chaos tier of drop. Like I got I forget what it was. I got a drop that was a rare. There's only 50 or so people on the server. A unique drop that was something, and I remember it being worth like 30 or 40 chaos in a trade league right now, whatever it was. I can't remember what it was, and I traded it for an anti-bleed Stib Knight because I didn't have ults to roll, and that anti-bleed Stib Knight was worth way more to me than 40 chaos because I needed bleed immunity and I needed it now.
Yeah,
It's going
obviously
to kill me.
can't roll the flask with chaos.
Yeah, and so just like the market when you've only got 50 people playing is it's very weird. Like I'm sitting on a Shabs right now, and if someone finds an anvil for my block character, I will trade that. And those are not normally equal trades, but I will happily give up a Shabs for the thing that I need, which I'm really enjoying.
It wasn't
that's
that's
great.
the kind of mentality that the PoE has always strived for, right?
That
whole
I don't
idea.
need this.
Yeah.
I want to trade it for something that I do need. Anything. You find something for my build, there's this thing that's worth way more, but it's not really worth way more, is it? Because it's not worth anything to me. I'm not going to use it. So
exactly.
It's just and before that, we were doing Lost Ark, which is absolutely fantastic. I literally I've been wanting an MMO for about the past year. I've been sort of missing that MMO feel, that group play that's done properly thing. And holy shit, Lost Ark is amazing. It is smooth and it is in-depth and the combat feels amazing. And I wish I could understand Korean because I don't know anything about what's going on at all. But
oh yeah, the game's fully in Korean and there's no translation yet.
Oh yeah, there's no translation.
So how do you actually play? I mean, you just press buttons and you don't know what they do.
I mean, how often did you read quest text when you were playing MMOs anyway? You just skip through it and follow the minimap markers. So that's what I do.
I mean, isn't Lost Ark an MMO ARPG though?
It's
I'll better call it an MMORPG.
It's an MMO primarily. Primarily, it's an MMO. Like it fits in the MMO category. Its combat style is ARPG.
Yeah, because I mean, I've always
calling
played
it an MMO ARPG is probably a bit of a stretch, but its combat feels like an ARPG, and the rest of the game feels like an MMO.
I don't know. I've always been, skipping everything in ARPG games. Whereas in MMORPGs, first time you play them, you skim through it a little bit, right? But
I never read anything.
I like my immersion.
Like back when I played WoW, there was this add-on called Quest Helper, and it would just put a little arrow on my screen that would tell me the best way to get through a zone, doing the most amount of quests as possible, and it would literally point you all the way to the next NPC to talk to, and then out in the correct path to fix everything as quickly as possible. And that's what I did. I never read a single thing. I just did it the quickest way possible without ever checking anything. So it being in Korean hasn't really affected me that much.
Did you enjoy your time in World of Warcraft?
Oh yeah, no, I loved it.
How?
Yeah. There's something wrong with me. I don't know. I enjoyed raiding. I enjoyed raiding and grouping and endgame stuff. I never cared for leveling up. Questing and stuff is not my thing. I want dungeons.
Right.
So I like MMOs, but I like them for the endgame content. I like them for raiding and.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
dungeons
That's
and
kind of what
things, but I
MMOs
don't
are
give a
for,
shit
right?
about.
It's like
Yeah.
it's only the end game that's there. The leveling is just a nuisance. Evil necessity.
So Lost Ark, however, I've had fun while leveling right from the word go. Everything I do, every move, I played every single character that was available through their tutorials, which are about like half an hour, 45 minutes each. I played all of them, and every single one of them felt impactful with every ability they used in different ways. I didn't feel like any ability I picked up in Lost Ark didn't do anything or didn't feel good. Every single one of them felt amazing. So I can't wait for it to be released to us because, I don't know, I played it for like 3 days and then the re-verification happened. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's a Korean-only game. You have to VPN in to play it to appear like you're coming from Korea. You have to get a Korean to make your account, which is tied to them as a citizen and a phone number. And
yeah, how easy was that to get?
To get really easy, but then 3 days later, Stove did a re-verification thing, which if you're in Korea is easy. It means they sent you a text, and you go plug the text in, you hit enter, and you're back in the game. And if you're not in Korea, it means you're pretty much fucked. And so I played it for 3 days, and then re-verification happened, and I can't get back in. So I'm not going to play it again unless I make myself a Korean friend that I can trust to re-authenticate my account, or they release it to us.
But don't you have any like Korean friends on your on your analing missions or side job?
No
okay.
Koreans.
No, I would also assume that you could easily make Korean friends on the game then, but yeah. Probably missed the window.
That as well. But to me, it feels like it's from what I've seen or heard, it feels like the game is filled with more non-Korean players than actual Koreans.
I think that's just because that's all we see.
Probably.
Because we're not looking at the Korean sites.
Because you can't read
Reddit
the Korean
is a
chat.
Korean site. I can't read whatever their version of Reddit is, so I've never gone there. Right? So
Google Translate works, right? Should try that out.
Does it? Does it?
It should.
Hang on. Where's my quote list? Right, so I tried to Korean translate. I tried to Google Translate from Korea, and what I got was in the game somewhere. In the game somewhere, I highlighted some text and I was like, "What does this say?" And I put it into Google Translate, and it returned, "To be roast zero dream, I will always try." And I was like, "Yeah, all right, this doesn't work very well."
Yeah, I've made that experience
with, came up
with Thai. It also doesn't work. Like there's just so many metaphors in the language and so many things that are said and expressed in completely different ways that the direct translation mechanics of Google Translate just fail to make it comprehensible.
It doesn't work.
It's
just too many colloquialisms or things that just need to be translated by a person, not.
I'm curious, how many people were running around running up a Gangnam Style?
I didn't see anyone else who was English speaking while I was playing. I didn't seek anyone out or look for a guild either, but I didn't see any non-English. Now I did have to stop once or twice and like type in game, which I could only do in English. And sometimes somebody would stop there. They'd type 1 or 2 times, and then I'd be like, I only speak English. And then they'd stop there for a minute and you'd wait about like 30, 40 seconds and then they'd type back to you in English. So they were able to read it. And then, of course, most Koreans can speak English. So they've just gone and like swapped their keyboard over to English. And then they've typed back and they've like helped me do whatever quest I was struggling with because I couldn't read or whatever.
Nice.
It didn't happen very often, but there was a few times, usually something like, walk up to this fountain and do the cheer emote. And I'm like, there's nothing here. Like I get to the fountain, all I've got is just this highlighted area to walk to. What do I do now?
All right,
So they'll stop and they'll talk to you and teach you how to do stuff. No one ever. It was great. But
I
yeah,
like the idea
when it
that
comes
we need
out,
a Korean citizen to get the accounts. I know from other informations and from what I've heard from in the past, that there's a common thing for certain Korean players that it's kind of a thing that they hunt down Chinese players and report them for account theft to get them banned.
specifically
Thing.
botters more than the fact that they're Chinese players, but the majority of the bots and gold farming stuff is coming from China. And apparently Korea has this thing where they literally all band together and go hunting. Like they literally go hunting for bots in games and mass report them when once they're like proven, they're like, oh, look at these 72 people following the exact same pathing in sync. And then they get them all banned. And I think that's fantastic. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But it doesn't seem like they care at all. They seem, if anything, proud that Western people are over here going through this much hassle to get into their game. And they're always super happy about it. Everyone I've talked to has been happy about it. I had Korean people come into stream and hang out for hours and help me translate things and tell me what's going on. And everyone seems like, oh no, we're all super happy about that. In fact, we're super happy about anyone who's legitimately playing the game, even if you've had the VPN in. It's the botting and the gold farming stuff that we hate. Like, and people have gone to all this effort to play our game makes us proud, sort of thing. But they will go hunting for bots and cheats and things like that. It's good.
Very insightful, definitely. I was wondering about the whole thing, and thanks for giving us a little bit of a background here. But I think we want to move on now and talk about the elephant in the room, the 3.5 Betrayal announcement in Path of Exile. And there's a lot of things that have been announced. We don't know any details yet, but what we do know so far is that there is the so-called Immortal Syndicate that is doing things in Ray class and are somehow related to the fact that the old Forsaken Masters have mysteriously vanished. And then there will be, similar to Delve or Incursion, there will be in every area that we enter an encounter. And now in this case, it will be syndicate encounters where we fight a group of syndicate members, and then afterwards we get multiple choice how to continue our investigation. When the investigation is progressed enough, then we can actually invade their safe houses and loot all the stuff that they have. And, with the gap that the disappearing masters left, we get a new group of masters, which is the return of Einhar, Alva, and Nico. And they're gonna provide us with a new progression through master crafting. There will be no leveling up anymore. And that's all pretty hype. I mean, we've all been waiting for the big master work because we all knew that it's gonna happen. But I think no one was able to anticipate that it's going to happen in this way. What were you guys' first impression when you watched the trailer and looked at the announcement?
So I'll just get this out of the way real quick first. There isn't anyone who thinks that the leaders of the syndicate is anything other than our old masters, right? Like, we're all sure about that?
Well, there's screenshots.
Yeah.
There is screenshots.
Like, most confident.
I mean, look, there's Leo here.
Master Arena is there. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Which also brings me to another question, which we can talk about later, which is who the hell is going to be the new PvP master? Because that's nowhere nowhere is that stated that there is a PvP master.
They just removed PvP from the game.
Thank God.
I mean, would that really be a problem? The 7 people who are enjoying PvP will be very upset.
Well, PvP will return as Battle Royale again, hopefully at some point in the future.
Probably.
But Yeah, I'm curious to see what it means for PvP. That's true. But I've also wondered the same things about like the current meta crafting mods, like suffixes, prefixes cannot be changed, and you know, all that sort of
those
stuff.
will all still appear. I expect all of those mods that we're used to will still be available.
What about the currency deals? The jewelers from Elrion and the fuses from Richie?
That's a bigger question. That one I'm not sure about.
Isn't that more of
I
a
wouldn't
Soul
mind if it
Self-Found,
disappeared either. Like,
well, isn't that more of a Soul Self-Found worry than anything else? Because I don't feel that I've ever needed it.
I mean,
It's more been like let's compare that rate to the market, and if it's good, then sure, whatever, right?
And usually I do it every day, but like the fuse one at least, but it's never that much better. Like it's just usually just like, oh yeah, like that's two extra fuses compared to what I would have got. I'll just buy it every day because it's there in my hideout.
Yeah.
Yeah, but usually the fusing is in general the only one that's really worth it. The other ones are sometimes worth it by less than one chaos of a profit for doing it. It's like you do it if you have too much currency, so to say. With too much, I mean you have more than you need, and then you start flipping that. That's like your daily flipping. If you're not the kind of flipper that sits in auction in your hideout and spams the trading all the time.
But I don't know where those vendor recipe things are going to go, but I mean, worst comes to worst, they're just daily recipes. They're just slightly better than what you get from a normal vendor in town anyway. You can still flip currency in the same direction. I'm not sure that those daily deals really added anything important anyway. If they get lost, they get lost. Whatever. I'm fine with that. The rest of it super interests me though. The rest of everything they brought in with the way crafting and hideouts and everything going to work just looks amazing. The UI for crafting still looks
a little bit cluttered.
It still looks woefully bad, but much better than we've ever had. So an improvement, but I would have liked. I don't know. I feel like
you could search. There's a search bar.
You can search now.
You can click the items.
It's definitely
available.
more functional.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's all in one place, which is better. But the UI still looks ugly, and that's something that GGG has always had a problem with right from the word go. Is they're not really good at UIs. That's just they don't. It's always been a thing. They've never been good at it right from the word go. I've not seen a UI that's been great.
I mean, I know that we've had a certain rat in our community who's been very annoyed with the fact that we have buffs and debuffs so far away from our HP bar. You guys know who I'm talking about.
Was it Rice QT?
Potentially.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm the only one. He's right.
Many of us are with him on this, and has been complaining about this. It's just that he happened to be extremely vocal about this. The thing is, they are still not fixing it. They did separate the buffs and debuffs at least, and that's what you're saying about the bad with UIs. However, if you look at both console versions, they actually have that fixed in the console version. So why can't they just do that in the PC version?
Wait, how did they fix it in the console version?
They put the debuffs next to your HP bar.
Their debuffs are next to their health globes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I wasn't aware.
Which is what you want. Like that's what you want. That's where you want debuffs to be.
Yeah, I mean that's where you look when you're in danger in order to assess how dangerous. How dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, PT might have been right. I mean, they put too much the best developers on the PC, on the console versions, apparently, because the UI is in the right place.
In general, I'm a fan of the UI.
I don't know about that.
But speaking about the league in general, I'm not sure if this is a popular opinion, and don't be mad at me, but I'm just gonna say my thoughts about this is that I feel. Now, bear with me. Now, I'm not finished.
Okay.
The league feels hollow and empty. And to elaborate on this before anyone goes bananas, now the league itself looks rather hollow and empty, and I am honestly more hyped about everything else around the stuffs rather than the actual league stuffs. Like what I'm more hyped about is the master function, the idea of the crafting, and the new skills. Those are the things, and the hideout stuff as well, and the new endgame maps, the new tiles, the new rotation of the atlas, and the revamp skills. Those things are what makes me more hyped than the new league-specific items, than the actual league-specific stuff of the syndicate stuff, because to me it feels like another version of Incursion. It will obviously, I think it's going to be interesting and cool, but it's not what makes me the most hyped about this. Because for me, the hype is in every other aspect of this reveal post and their announcement, but not the actual league itself. And I'm not sure how many other people are feeling the way I feel, but that's my personal opinion. Obviously, it will be cool to manipulate the syndicate, but in general, it will end with the streamlined meta play of which which syndicate leader will give you the best items. So that will be the generic way you're going to play for each character. This character is going to use Garvichis as a because you need that extra gravy sauce as the leader, or you're going to need to use Hillock, and then you do this and this. You have to do that, and that's going to be the way you play it, and that's going to be something that you're going to be repetitively grinding. Whereas there won't be any exploring after you've seen what it does, right? And that kind of makes the league less repetitively enjoyable, in my opinion, which will rotate me back to feeling that everything else around the game is more interesting to look out for. Like how will the new crafting stuffs appear? How will the quest for the masters work? And the new abilities, making builds for those, and etc. etc. But that's my personal opinion about the announcement. And I'm not saying that the league is not going to be. It's not looking like it's a fun league. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just more hyped about the other parts.
So that feels. I'm definitely not going to say like it's wrong, but it feels premature because I feel like whether it plays out like that or not is going to depend entirely on the reward structure that we don't actually know.
Oh, absolutely.
If they balance that properly, if they balance the rewards properly and they make, it's going to be impossible to make all of them exactly equal without giving you exactly the same reward, right? Like you can't. But if they're all close enough that getting any of them as the leader of the syndicate and getting there no matter who's in charge feels rewarding. And that plays out right, I feel like that'll last a lot longer. But at the same time, I didn't until right now separate in my head all of the new stuff that's coming out from what is actually league specific. And you are right. A lot of the things I'm the most excited about are coming to standard.
Exactly.
Well. Like they're the things that are exciting me the most are game changers. But I'm also wondering then, is that intentional? Like, do they know that? Oh well, it's not top tier engagement wise, but it's still going to be pretty damn good. But do they just know like, it's not going to be the most replayability in the world, but we've gone and put all of this other work in, so now is a good time to just slot that in and slide it past this, so to speak, which I'm not against, like, because I'm super excited about everything else that's coming anyway.
To comment the situation, like to do that before I forget it. Sorry, Kat. So to comment there, that I think that again we're in a situation where we can't really see till they release all the information, right? And this is why it's kind of whatever if we're gonna speculate, which is not gonna do any good, to be honest. But to comment on the statement of it depending on how the reward structure is, if they balance the reward structure at the same time as still maintaining a difference between the leaders, then the only comment I have to that is, have they ever managed to balance that in a good way? And the answer is yes, extremely rarely over the past 5 years. So it has happened, but I'm just saying that that's not something I'm personally expecting. But again, we're going to have to see when the actual release comes out. But I think that this league has been a way for them, if the Masters are now part of the Immortal Syndicate, this would be a great opportunity for them to remove the Masters or shove them into a league where they don't have to reintroduce them because we killed them in this league, so to say. But again, these are again speculations and something we will have to wait and see with. But as you said, if you separate the league specific stuffs compared to what is part of the actual standard changes, the league feels rather hollow and empty on a fundamental mechanical baseline. It's going to be very streamlined. Even if the reward structure is somewhat balanced, it will still result in certain things being more optimal for your specific build or character, or for the sake of profiting. and that will be the way you play it, and that's it. And again, I think the other parts will be more enjoyable. But that's my opinion about it. Sorry, Kat, for the interruption.
No worries. I have an own opinion statement first, and then I have like a two-part question in response to what you said about the league, Ghazzy. First of all, I want to say, does it matter though? Like, does it really matter that the majority of the things that we're hyped for are not part of the league? Because every league is an expansion now, and it's kind of hard because league and expansion get more and more interwoven at this point. But I feel that seeing that a large portion of the player base actually plays permanent standard, and the last couple leagues didn't really give anything. Like, since basically War for the Atlas in Abyss, we didn't get anything for permanent standard during the league. I think it's actually cool that permanent standard players get a big part of what is being hyped in this new expansion. So that's just my opinion. I see the standard dance games in chat, but honestly, like, it doesn't mean, like, we still get it in the temporary league. It's just that the standard people get something as well. It's like,
am I an asshole? Like, the first thing I think of is, who gives a fuck about standard?
Okay, so
wait! I still got questions for you.
Sure,
you go.
And that is like, is your opinion about this league, is that opposed to previous leagues? Like, did you have the same feeling for Delve? Were you also not hyped for the for the incursion, for the temple, for going back in time and like rearranging the temple? Because that's also a rather bland feature. If I compare it to this, it's very similar, only that I feel that the Immortal Syndicate is a little bit more elaborate, and there will be way more replayability than there was with incursion. Yeah, I think that was a question. I forgot the other one that I had.
Okay, I'll answer that one first, and unless Valor wants to cut in. Yes, I felt that incursion was empty and hollow as a baseline mechanic as well. I felt that it would literally be played in very specific ways, only for optimal profit, with the RNG feature being somewhat affecting what you can achieve and what you can't achieve. And when we played the league, I personally felt that you went for currency, you went for whatever you wanted to do. If you want to double corrupt or not, you went for very specific things. And then if your build could handle, now I played hardcore, and I died a handful of times. I'm just saying that you chose, depending on how hard you made the temple, if you wanted to go for the last boss or not. And I eventually ended up with a situation where the higher tier temples, I made boss run specific situations where I didn't upgrade the hardest ones for me because of the map modifiers, like a max resistances and whatnot. And I went for boss runs, or I went for the room runs where I would literally design the room so I could get as good rooms as possible, right, that I wanted. And that I think that the Betrayal League will be very similar in that sense. But then again, to comment what I wanted to cover earlier, the standard league, I used to play standard only for 1.5 years before I started playing leagues, many years ago when I started playing PoE. And I chose to play because I got bored of standard, and I crafted endgame items and whatnot. That's what I used to do back in standard, on top of making guides and whatnot. And I started playing leagues to get myself the replayability. And GG had gone out publicly and stated that they won't do things that will affect the market, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to craft any items. And one of the reasons I started playing leagues was because they started fucking around with these markets in standard, with stronger modifiers, stronger stuffs in the leagues that then got shipped into standard. New tier 1 mods really screwed me over. Made a 5 mirror item worthy item worth 300 exalted. That was pretty sad, considering it cost me 5 mirrors to make. And the list went on of modifiers getting stronger and stronger. And since let's wind up the tape and go back to rather recent leagues such as incursions, where you can drop an item that has up to 100% trap damage, 100% minion damage on a one-handed weapon, which you can craft, and suddenly that competes with BIS items of the past. And these things just shows how little, I got a long list of very vulgar comments here, but to make it somewhat kid-friendly, a long list of these things are affecting, are showing how little GGG cares about the Standard League. So I don't think that anything they're doing with the new leagues is considering the Standard League. They don't have that as a thing in their mind. Standard League to them is a trash can. That's where the new players comes in to learn shit, and it's just a sandbox for them. And then they come in to actually play the game, which is the leagues. And I understand that concept because over the handful of I'm not sure how many years it is. I think it's the last 3 or 4 years, Standard League has dropped a lot of players. There are still players playing it, but a very large portion of the Standard players community has started playing in the leagues instead. So and you can notice this very, very, very easily on the market, and you can see the numbers as well. I do believe they released numbers about this a year ago, or maybe 2, and that was very different compared to when I started playing Standard myself. God, that turned into a rant. I'm so sorry.
Honestly, I thought there was only about 6 people playing Standard. Like, I don't understand. I really don't understand why anyone would play Standard.
Just for context,
it escapes me.
Just for context, when did you start playing BalorMage?
Yep. I want to say Bloodlines.
Okay, same here. 2014. Bloodlines was Christmas 2014. And because I know that because that's when I started.
I'm not positive that it was Bloodlines. Tormented Spirits was in softcore.
Tormented Spirits was parallel to Bloodlines.
Right, okay, yep. So I started in hardcore on Bloodlines then. That was the first time I ever played.
Okay, yeah, I played a little bit earlier during Rampage Beyond Leagues, and I think my first hardcore experience was during Beyond League, and then in the 2-week Rampage Beyond with the old Beyond, and that was the most fun I had back then. Even though I died all the time and never reached maps, but it was super fun.
I say that was my first league. I think I might have ran a total of like 3 or 4 tier 1 or 2 maps the whole league. I just die leveling, make it to maps once, run through maps, die, go back, die leveling, make it to maps again, stay in maps for 2 days, die.
That's why I started playing Standard. I died 1,500 times on my 1,700 ES low life summoner with a borrowed shabs from a friend.
So when did you start?
I started playing
right after release,
end of 2013 or start 2014, somewhere around patch 1.1, earlier than that, because I remember at Siri coming into the world, and that was the Sacrifice of the Vaal expansion. It's like a mini expansion, I think, or a small expansion, which was released sometime before my birthday in 2014. That must have been February or March 2014, and I started playing sometime just before that, because I was ready to get my world first summoner kill on Uber at Siri. So I was ready. But that was like I had my learning period and introduction to the game before that patch. So that's what, 4 or 5 years ago? 4 years, 5 years? It should be about 5 years now, right?
Closing. Oh wait, no, it must be 5 years if it was in 2013, right?
At the end or start of 2014. So that should be about 5 years now.
Closing in, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I think I remembered my question that I had. And the question was, the general notion, if I may summarize what you said, was that you're not too hyped about the Immortal Syndicate and the investigation itself because you allege or you suppose that there is not a lot of meaningful choice, but that people will rather quickly, just as with Delve, figure out what is the best option to go for. And that's why you think it will be very bland or hollow in comparison to all the other stuff. But I wanted to raise the question, is that not generally a problem with Path of Exile, or generally a thing in Path of Exile, that the game is actually rather easy and rather hollow if you know what to do, and that the game, the fun part of the game, is actually figuring out what to do, and that, you know, the quality of the new league largely depends on how fast people will figure out, how long people will take to discover all the content and to find out what are the rewards and to then be able to classify them and say what is the best to go for. And then it's still a question of how equal are things and how much do they serve a certain niche and do have like a what do you say, a justification for being around next to the other things.
So the answer to that would be, is that a problem with PoE? And I think that's not necessarily a problem with PoE. I think that's a recurring thing in any game or even outside of games, in any structure. If you give people repeatable content with meaningful choices, there will always be one or two optimal routes. And once those are worked out, these are the optimal routes. And it doesn't even matter whether it's in a game or not. When you have meaningful choice, but limited options, there's always going to be an optimal route. And the only way around that is by not giving us meaningful choice.
No, wait. I think we're talking a different discourse here. I thought meaningful choice was opposed to there being an optimal thing, because meaningful choice means that there is no optimal thing and that there's actually meaningful choice. Because if you say optimal, then there's no meaningful choice because everyone goes for the optimal.
Well,
No,
they have designed,
choice.
as far as we know, they have designed the idea that the rewards will be different depending on who you decide to be the leader in the end. And that will inherently allow you to dictate what type of rewards you want. Now, the rewards will obviously determine which one is best for your specific needs, either for the sake of profiting, to make it, you make the rating of the Immortal Syndicate encounters lucrative, and or if you want to focus on beneficial aspects for your own personal character's gain and progression of your character's strength. And I mean, I see what you mean, Balor. And what we have to remember is that even if we've invested a lot of hours into this game, this is still an ARPG game. And ARPG games are fundamentally hack and slash games, which will mean and does mean a lot of repetitive grinding. And that's basically the entire genre. Then the game developers are their job is to make us enjoy it for as long as time as possible and make us not feel like we're, collecting boar heads in World of Warcraft to hand into a quest to go on to the next place where they want us to, collect boar ears. And then in the next place, we're actually going to go back and skin these boars and bring that back. This whole repetitive, mindless approach and make it as little, as meaningful as possible, as you say in Catmaster, but it's still very repetitive, very grindy, and that's the whole idea of it. So I don't think that the league itself will be hollow and bland, like and empty, but I think that the league itself, if you look at the league specifically, then yes, I think that's going to be it. But then again, that's just one aspect of the many ways you can play the game. And I think that even if there will be optimal routes, like look at Dell, but we can take another example, being Incursion. There was one way you could make it optimal for the sake of making currency. There was another way to make it profitable or make it optimal or efficient for the sake of benefiting your character with double corruptions, which should be sold as well if you went for non-items, items that you weren't going to use, that you just wanted to sell. You could go for boss items to farm that. So there were different ways of doing it, which will most likely be the case of the Immortal Syndicate as well, where you can choose how you want to do it, which is creating meaningful decisions, which will ultimately end in how you're going to play the league, which will basically just dictate how you're going to use the Immortal Syndicate, and that's going to be the route you play. And that might not be the most effective, but it will be the most effective route for the way you want to play that most people will go for. And I don't think that's going to take more than a handful of days before that's established. And that's usually how it goes from league to league. And then we're back on this repetitive grinding back and forth, in and out.
And I mean, I like the repetitive grind. That's hopefully everyone does if we're playing this game, because that's just gonna stick around.
Well, that's fundamental.
Yeah, that's pretty much the genre we're in. But yeah, I feel like Catmaster has a slight misunderstanding of what meaningful choice means in this, or I do, one of the two. But to me, meaningful choice, there are only three options. Either you don't give us any choice at all, like Breach League, where they just happened. You didn't get a choice of what breach you're running. That's no choice, just league content there.
Or you get the choice of whether...
choice, or you get the illusion of choice. And we've all played video games before where you go and talk to some NPC and there's three different dialogue options, but no matter which one you pick, you end up having to fight them and kill them.
Yeah.
And so on your first playthrough, it feels like you made this choice that ended in you killing him. But when you go back and play it, you're like, oh, well, I don't want to kill him this time. You pick another option, and you end up killing him anyway. And that's the illusion of choice. That's not a meaningful choice. It's just there to give you that feeling like you've made a decision when you haven't. Whereas, so in that instance, there's no such thing as an optimal route. There's only one route. You were just given the illusion of choice. It looked like you were choosing where the story went when you weren't. And it's a good trick, but it's not what this is. This is actual choice that is meaningful. But when you do that, there will always end up being an optimal route. And if you want to be one of those players who play at min-max, most efficient thing, not worried about what you personally want to do or what's fun, there's going to be one route. And it's going to happen in every game where there is meaningful choices. There's going to be, this is the best way to purely make money. And then that becomes the one most people do.
Okay, then we probably really have a different understanding, because I learned from the school of Project PT, basically, that if there is one option that is clearly superior to the other ones, then it's not meaningful choice, then it's the illusion of choice.
No, because if you make the choices that lead you to bad rewards, that's meaningful.
Oh, because there's an actual difference, that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a meaningful choice. You either get shit options or good options.
But isn't that only meaningful until you know which one are the good and the shit ones? Because then you'll never go for the shit ones.
Of course, but
yeah, absolutely. But that's the whole point that I think Vaal is trying to make. It's the idea of some people might don't value the rewards and rather value the experience of encountering all the fights, right? Then the meaningful choice will be there till you've done that. And then if the next step for you as a player is, hey, I want to now make this as efficient as possible, this is the route. Once that is established, there is no meaningful choice anymore, because if that's what the goal, which is going to be the main goal for, I'm going to go ahead and assume that will be the main goal for most players, especially in softcore, that will generate a situation where those players have now, obviously by their own hand, now removed the meaningful part of the choices they make. Right, but again, this is very specific.
You're still making that choice. If they weren't meaningful choices, it wouldn't matter what option you picked.
No, exactly.
By definition.
I see what you mean.
And since you have to now pick the efficient route, if you're someone who chooses that, I must be the most efficient, I must make the most amount out of my time. You're still making the choice. You have to go through these options. And the only reason you have to go that way is because it has meaning. If it didn't have any meaning, it wouldn't matter what way you went. Then it wouldn't be exactly. Choice.
No, I see what you mean. So it will be meaningful choices, which I agree on. But I think that my problem with PoE in this sense that it has created the situation for me, at least, where I felt burnt out, right? As I mentioned earlier, is the fact that after the massive repetitive grinding that the game is, which I'm enjoying, at a certain point, it's like we end up in a situation where we need to see some new stuff. So many people need to see some new stuff. And these expansions, or mini expansions, whatever you want to call it, the new leagues, are really amazing in that, with all the new stuffs coming out, right? And the funny thing is, with that in mind, is that I feel, or have felt in many leagues, that there is never enough, at least for me, to enjoy for the full time between the league start to the league end, which is not oriented in the league not being good enough and whatnot. It's usually oriented in the fact that clear speed meta is a huge issue. And I know that this is something I've bitched about a lot in the last couple of weeks, at least on my stream and whatnot, well, last couple of years, saying that the game is heading into a situation where it is more about how fast and efficient you can go that reduces the meaning, since we're into that, of every other choice. It diminishes the entertainment of everything else. A build example could be Umbrella Corp Apocalypse build that existed some time ago, which is a zombie build. And as you know, zombies are brain dead, literally. They still haven't fixed it. I doubt they'll ever do that. They're garbage, horrible shit.
They do a lot of damage if they can ever actually make it to the enemy to hit them.
Oh, absolutely. They can do insane amount of damage by their shit. And you as a summoner will have no defense. So you'll be a glass cannon trusting your life into minions that don't even have half a goat's brain. So basically, what I'm trying to make with this point is that it's a fun build because a lot of people enjoy the whole idea of having zombies, as a true classic summoner. Usually nowadays, summoners using specters and whatnot. But let's not go in too much in detail of this. I'm bringing up summoners because that's most of my builds. I play as summoner builds. So to get to the point, the zombie build is very niche, but it's a very slow build because, like you said, they'll do a lot of damage when they eventually get to the enemies, right? And there are ways to minimize this impact, but ultimately the build will be very slow because they're melee minions. They have to go up there. You have to substitute their slow clear speed and all of these things where there are tons of millions of better options. And that's the thing, because a lot of people are getting affected by this whole meta of clear speed where everything is about being effective. You want to have a lot of currency, you got to play effective. You want to do this expensive build, you got to get a lot of currency, which means you got to play effective. And the less time you have, the fewer hours you have to invest into the game, the more effective you have to play to open up a lot of the end game stuff that you might want to do, but you might not be able to do. And these are a lot of topics inside this commentary. But what I'm trying to say is that then if you want to play a zombie build, it is a lot of people, myself included, have chosen to not do it. And rather recently, just an hour before the podcast, I was asked to update my zombie build, and I said I could help the guy out to make a build for it, but I'm not going to update the guy because barely no one wants to do it because of the fact that it is ineffective. And this goes hand in hand to the new league as well, where eventually most people will go in and play the most effective route because of a lot of reasons. Majorly because people have things they want to do, and to be able to get to that point, they will have to play as effective or efficient as possible to generate as much currency as possible to be able to play the game in the way they enjoy, right? And it all circles back to the clear speed meta.
But I felt that Delve did a great deal breaking up that clear speed meta dominance, because in Delve, you all of a sudden, it was not only, how fast can you clear the map, but also how deep can you delve, how tanky can you make your character to survive that deep down there while still being able to deal some damage, and at the same time being able to clear maps at an acceptable speed to accumulate the sulfite. So I thought that was a really nice, that triangle of things where you can't have all three but only two. I thought that was really, really nice with speed, life, and damage.
That definitely helped.
Ended up in a very specific build to be able to handle the deepest delves.
But that's not a problem of Delve. That's a problem of the game mechanics that they explicitly said that they're making Delve in order to find out those extreme border cases and to be able to possibly nerf them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't have any problems. Sorry,
they did a good job. They found extreme cases.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm immune to all damage. Forever. Oh, okay, that's a build that exists now.
But yeah, no, I'm not saying Delve is a bad league. I think that Delve was a really good league, and I think that was a really good way to do it and to show to test it out and whatnot. But I don't have any hopes that GGG, or expectations at least. I don't think that GGG will ever fix the pressing clear speed meta. And I don't know. Like I feel that personally, I think the game is better than it has ever been. But if you take away all the new stuff that has been added and look at the actual fighting and how it feels and the difficulty of the game, the difficulty has gone away. And my best example of this is when I talk about this on the stream, has been at Siri herself. Now, many people, when Siri came out and whatnot, very few people actually did at Siri in the start. Even fewer did Uber at Siri. I remember us back in Standard League, for that matter, I think we were 12 guys in total that did Uber at Siri service runs. And this was way before we got the Ascendancy, the Labyrinth, and all of these things. Like, it was hard. It was really hard. And most of the people running this had mirror service tier gear on them. I was the only one in the game doing it as a summoner for many weeks, actually months before someone else came in to do it. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. And then patch after patch after patch, we just got stronger and stronger and stronger. And in the same breath as Chris Wilson is saying, "Oh, we don't want power creeping to be a thing. We want people to be challenging." In the same breath, we get ascendancy nodes without any buffs to the enemies, and suddenly, the Uber tier was a piece of cake. Everyone did it within 24 hours, regular tier at least. And the next league after that, people did Uber tier within the first 24 hours. And it just got boring because it was too easy, right? But what that does, it opens up that content to more players. It opens up that content to the more casual players, which I think is a good thing. But I'm not a big fan of the idea that the game is adding layers upon layers of complexity while not addressing the actual difficulty and still granting us more power creeping. And that's my biggest issue. And we can't really talk about that specifically until we see the next rounds of patch notes when they're coming out. But my expectations is that we will not be seeing the approach of monsters becoming tougher for us to beat and actually increasing the difficulty. We will most likely just see balancing of things where the balance scale will be based around a point where you have things being difficult here. This is right now where we're killing things. This is the power creep level we are at, where it should be more closer in line with the difficulty. But here we are, and all the skills on the patch notes will be balanced up here instead. And that's the problem I have right now. But then again, they have done things like introducing a new boss like Uber Elder, which was very hard. But then it was trivialized by having one ascendancy class, completely trivialized 90% of the fight. And in softcore, you could do it with many other builds, but in hardcore, you pretty much had one very safe option, and then you had a few other builds that could do it. And that was the same thing there. Very few people did it, and now we're getting stronger and stronger and stronger with new things like incursion items and whatnot, and Eldraines being available. All the long list of more power being granted to us opens up so more people can run this content. Nowadays, more people than ever are running Uber Elder than in the start, obviously, because experience and guides and whatnot. But the issue still remains, at least in my opinion.
Hey, that strikes me as a good thing, though. Like the quote-unquote best of the best, which is certainly not me, get into things like Uber Elder when they come out first, and they get to do that, and then slowly over time, more and more people get in, and then they just add something harder for the top people to chase after.
I like that.
It would feel bad if you're if you're at a certain, like, this is as good of a gamer as you get, and you're not capable of doing this boss, and you're still playing 2 years later, and you're still not capable of killing this boss, and you feel just as strong and just as good as you were 2 years ago, and you still can't, you're just not moving forward. Those people are going to get bored, quit, leave.
Exactly.
No, I agree.
I feel it's a very how should I say, a very, very smart thing by GGG to do, because the people, the casual players who do more or less stagnate or not get a lot better at the game simply because they don't have enough time or enough investment into the game, they will gradually be able to do harder and harder content because of the power creep of the game. Now, if we look at the game difficulty, say like the easy content is here and the hard content is here and there's some spikes, right? And what happens over time is that GGG compresses this down, that the harder content, either by means of making players stronger or by nerfing the content, which is basically the same, becomes more and more available to lower skill level players, and they keep adding up things on top, which then makes the landscape complete again with easy content to hard content. But at the same time, it gives people who sort of stagnate the illusion of progressing through the game, which means that they're like more inclined to play the next league as well. They're more invested into the game because they made it through a progression.
Let me just say that or explain or elaborate what I'm trying to say is that I'm not saying that this is a problem. What I'm saying is that the lack of difficulty in the game is there, and because what makes me say this is, let's take Uber Elder as a great example. Uber Elder gets out, Uber Dan goes in and kills it, right? With a very specific build, 2 counts waste rings, Juggernaut, thick jug, righteous fire. Now, this shows the community that that's how you do it, at least in hardcore. and everybody wants to do it, and that allows a lot of people to do it, and the ones who have currency to do it, and those prices of these things just skyrockets, right? And that's the effect of it. And then you have a lot of people doing it in softcore with different kind of builds. Not long after this, people are showing off that, hey, Arc is completely broken, so now we can do it with Arc. Now, I don't care about the builds that can do it, but this shows this idea that the very top players that are doing this, the very high skill players, and that also have the time to get the type of currency to do this, the amount of time they can play to do this, which are very few people compared to the rest of the community. That means the content is currently kind of gated behind that type of players, which is not really good either for the community, in my opinion. But what then happens is, instead of having a fight or an encounter being based around how much time or kind of gear you have on your character, it is, instead of being based about your actual skills of playing the game, it is basically a gear check. And that's been my issue with it. It's been a gear check which gates content to the players that can play effective, or the players that can play a lot of time. And it seems to me that the way they fix this issue is not by nerfing them. Well, sometimes that has happened. But instead just give everyone more power, which just makes it sad, because it ruins the content that is before these bosses. It ruins the enjoyment of maps. Right now, when you're running a map, like I'm running a cheap build costing, I don't know, 40k out in total, and I am running through tier 16 maps, literally, and it's a summoner build for that matter. I'm actually just running. That's all I'm doing. Sometimes I'm clicking a flesh offering, and then I just run. Then I click flesh offering about 20 seconds later, and I run, and then I click the portal and I go out. That's all I'm doing. That's how I play the game right now. And instead of actually having a challenging approach when you're playing the game, and where you have to dodge actual things like projectiles, where you have to move out of effects on the ground, now you're just running one linear direction. The more linear the map is, the better, because that's efficient. And that's how I play in the highest tier maps, which I'm corrupting and sexenting and everything, still running through it. You can have a fucking reflex and everything, doesn't matter. You just run thugh it. And that's
you don't dodge volatiles.
You can actually outrun them, so they disappear if you're fast enough. But when they catch up, if they do, you're already away when they explode. So I mean, it's just the whole idea of you just running through the content, and that's losing a lot of entertainment of the game, because we're getting more power instead of balancing these really awesome endgame fights like Uber Zero and Uber Elder around. And I don't know how to do it, because I'm not a game developer and whatnot. I'm just saying that my opinions and problems with it is that endgame bosses like Uber Elder and whatnot is not really gated behind your skill level. It's more gated about how many hours you can play in the game, which gates that content to the players that plays, that doesn't have a job, full-time streaming or part-time streaming like myself. It gates the content behind these players that plays the game very effectively and sits in front of the computer all day, all long, like the three of us, and we love it, right? And we're able to do it because of the fact that we have the time for it. But most players don't. And currently the fix to that, to open the content for more players, is to buff everyone. I don't know. They've done this for so many years now that we are at the point where clear speed meta is obnoxious compared to how it was 2-3 years ago. I know what you guys think about that.
BalorMage?
I mean, I want the game to slow down a little, but I don't want it to go anywhere near as slow as it was 2 or 3 years ago. Like that. I to some extent I like clear speed. My problem's never really been with clear speed meta. My problem's always been with Magic Find, which I'd like to see them just remove completely from the game, but that's a different topic. I don't know that, like, I definitely agree with most of the things that you're saying, except that I don't think they're a problem.
Okay.
Because, yeah, okay, I can run through tier 15 and 16 maps now at a decent speed without having to worry too much. I just mass roll map and look for the 2 mods that I can't run on this particular build, and then re-roll those, and then that's it. Don't worry about anything. Just put everything in and run and run and run and run. But just because we can do that doesn't mean everybody else can, and many people can't. I know a lot of people who struggle to get into red maps at all and still find the game too difficult. And that's I feel like what's happened is the shift of a few years ago, the entire game was incredibly hard. 3 or 4 years ago, right from the word go, the game was hard. You get into maps, your tier 1 maps were hard. And as you crawled up maps, that was hard. It was hard to maintain your maps. It was hard to get up in tiers. Everything was difficult. And now the difficult content for those kind of players who have been around for that long or are that decent at it, the difficult content is now just right up at the end. You've got only this little bit of the game that's that hard. And the rest of it for us is significantly easier. But I feel like if they didn't do that, they wouldn't have the player base that we do. Because I know a lot of people who still struggle in maps, who still re-roll maps because this map came with -6 all res and 83% as fire, and that's too scary for them. So they re-roll that map. And if it was as hard as it was 3 or 4 years ago, you would have a lot of people who would just not play. And yeah, I do want it to be harder, and I would love for there to be even an extra 4 tiers of maps that were just much, much harder right at the end, that were just way, I don't know, or some version of, I would love to have a decent amount more harder content at the end. But the problem then is, how do you make that more rewarding to force me to do it? If it's going to be something that slows me down because it is difficult, then it's just always going to be more rewarding to go back to the normal 15s and just run them really, really quickly.
But I think that these things like that we're talking about, it clearly, we are all, most people, I see the chat as well, and it feels like a lot of us are agreeing on things that we're all saying, though everyone's viewing it differently. Some people would say that it's good, some people will say it bad. But that's, again, fundamental things. We also have to remember that the biggest player base of most games, if not all games, are unless you're playing, Dark Soul, because that's only masochist players that does that. Anyways, you're in a situation where the biggest player base consists majorly or generally by casual players, and then the game companies has to cater to those, right? And I understand that. And then again, the things that I would like to see in the game might not be what the vast majority of the company or the player base actually wants in the game. But that's my opinion, right? So everyone has different opinions about it, and we can just hope that the company does the best out of it, right? But you're saying you wanted harder endgame maps. Like, for me, there is the hardest encounter in the game when it comes outside endgame bosses has been the corrupted Vaal temple with the Uber-Siri trio boss with nasty mods. That has been the hardest map I've ever encountered, ever on any build, ever.
You know why that map's so hard? It's because you don't get to roll it.
Yeah, you don't get to roll it. But also, unlike at Siri, you don't get to precast in the boss room. Like, in the boss room, there's a certain line you can't pass, then the fight starts. Whereas as soon as you start moving inside the boss room in that map mod, then the fight's on. You don't get to precast, so you can easily target the one you need to kill. And it makes the fight so much harder. But I don't know about more tiers. I'm very happy about the Atlas system and the rotating it and whatnot. I'm very happy with the endgame system in that sense, because we have to remember that there's, we talked about this like a few days ago on my stream as well, where how many different endgame styles or what type of endgame available options do you have in PoE? And I could list 8 rather big generic versions of how you can play this game as endgame. And I mean, that kind of separates how people play the game and what those people would prefer to see. Someone who prefers magic finding might want to see more, magic find options, while someone who plays in-game boss farming might want to see more in-game bosses. The list goes on of what people actually want to see. So I think it's really hard to balance and cater to everyone. But
I still want to see magic find gone. I hate it.
I think
every single piece of gear with quantity on it should be removed.
I think that's a good point to get the derailed train back on the track.
Yep.
And to tie back into the Betrayal announcement discussion, where there will be a lot of other content in the end game. There will be a lot of alternative things that you can do, because not only will we get the League content itself, the Immortal Syndicate, but we'll also be able to, catch beasts focus on incursion temples and try to delve as deep as possible. I mean, I think delving deep will still be a race that is going to be running parallel to the race to level 100, for instance. And yeah, I think that or I hope that will, how do you say that will increase the time it takes before the league becomes stale, because of the fact that, you know, the more time you invest, the more trivial all the content becomes. And I don't know, you know, how hard the maximum hard things will be in 3.5. I mean, if red beasts return in the same way that they were originally in bestiary, for instance, they did put up quite a fight. I really enjoyed bestiary for that. I wasn't a fan of the cluttered beast crafting system or of the altar where you sacrificed beasts which you didn't know which map mods they were captured with, and so on. But I did enjoy that finally enemies are putting up a fight again and trying to actively kill you.
Nice reflect nullifier. Shit. that not seeing the map mods on those was actually pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
But yeah, tying back into this discussion, do you think that it will be too much, or do you think there will be, or like, is there such a thing as too many endgame options, too much content to explore, or do you think it won't be too much, or?
I don't think it is too much, but there definitely is such a thing. I've played games before where you get to the end and there's like 80 different options of things to do, and you're just like, I don't know what to do now. But the fact that all the different endgame options are mostly still tied to maps helps. You want to build temples, you have to go into maps. You wanted to go delving, you had to go into maps. You want to do Elder and Shaper, you have to go into maps. Like, they're engaging with the maps in different ways. Maybe you'll be chasing your new master missions around or whatever different thing. But because there's a lot of different things that all come off the Atlas system to begin with, I think it helps tie it all in, gives you a bunch of other things to do that aren't mapping, and that's great. But I don't think it's too overwhelming because it does all start with mapping.
I think that there will absolutely be a thing that's too much, and not content, but since the question was referring specifically to a league, I think that yes, there could be too much. And when I say too much, I'm specifically referring to a pressing issue where there's a lot of complexity, and there could be a situation where they're adding. I think we're already at that point, but it seems like they're removing a lot of complexity with the remake of the Masters Waters. So what they're doing, they're streamlining a lot of the layers of complexity that exists in the game, making it more accessible and easier for the community and the player base to access and use, which I think is a great thing, because there are too many layers of complexity. And I think that this upcoming 3.5 patch will be amazing to remove some layers of that. But it could be too much by adding too many layers of complexity, having a gazillion different crafting methods, having 5,000 different ways of doing this, and then before you learn which way to do it and what things are, and then it's really hard. I know that I spoke to Lifting about this some time ago. I know he made a video about it as well, and they were talking about essences, for example, and many new players don't even know what it is, and most new players barely use them, or if ever. I mean, I've invested.
I never used them.
Yeah, exactly. We use them as alcoves whilst leveling, right? I very rarely use essences unless I'm actually profit crafting. Then I use some of them in some situations.
I use the 4 endgame ones sometimes, the 4 corruptible ones, and everything else is used on a league start character to elk things.
Exactly.
And then never again. It just sits in the tab that I never make public, and I collect them.
Oh, no, I don't know.
I actually sell them, but like, you see what I mean. And a lot of people are just doing that, and they're just selling them because they don't understand or don't know how to utilize them. I know how to optimize it. It's just that I personally feel it's too much of a problem, and I only use it for very, very, very specific stuffs. And if it's not used for that, then I can't be arsed to bother it, and then I just rather sell it and get rid of that part of the game for me. And then adding more and more layers of complexity to the game, could be way too much, especially for new players. Like, we have to realize that most people don't have the amount of hours that we do. I'm not sure how many hours you guys have played. I've invested around 20,000 hours into Path of Exile, and since I started, obviously, and I still don't bother some of the stuffs in the game. I think it's too. I can't be arsed because there's so much. So I choose, I choose my ingredients, and then I use them to create the game experience for me in the game.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how it pans out. Really, we didn't get an awful lot of information about specifically how the new master system will work. Like, where they will randomly spawn. Will they spawn on the Atlas, like Elder Shaper influence?
We know how they happen. They said.
Oh, then explain it to me.
They'll spawn both daily and after a certain amount of maps are run. And they will pick themselves a map on the Atlas at random, and you'll have to go run that map to engage with that master.
And will they disappear if you choose to not run that map, or will there be such a thing as master blocking?
It was a cap of like a certain amount of maps they will move, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it said, at least.
They will move after a certain amount of time, presumably the same amount of time that it takes to respawn a new one after you've done your daily one, I would assume.
Probably.
I don't know what that amount of maps is. Could be anything from 5 to 40 within reason. I don't know. But
isn't it like Elder can despawn like any map that you run after 20 maps of doing Elder after he spawns, and not beating interacting with Guardians or Elder at all?
Yeah, if you don't kill at least a Guardian, any map after the 20th can, actually I think including the 20th, can despawn him. But so it'll be something similar to that. We just don't know the numbers. It'll be something along those lines. It could be every 10 maps a master will spawn. It will. The one thing I really like about that though is it's giving me another reason to unlock more maps. If they're going to randomly pick maps, I'm hoping they randomly pick maps around the tier that I'm running to start with. That would really help, because you're
talking about a similar mechanic as a Shaper and Elder, right?
Yeah, because if they don't spawn around the maps you're currently running, if you're one of those people that are farming tier 3 burials and it spawns in a tier 14 map you don't have, that will feel shit. Or if have your fully shaped Atlas and you're running, anything from your tier 11s to your 16 shaped, and you have none of the reds unlocked and it spawns in reds, that's going to be annoying. It costs you 3 red sextants, or you give it up. Like, that's not going to feel great. Basically, so I hope it spawns around the tier that you're running.
But then again, if it spawns in an incorrect position, you're able to run your maps that you were running till it despawns and respawns in your new location. So, or relocate.
But I think it will just be another mechanic on top of Shaper strongholds that will diminish the value of a shaped Atlas strategy and shift the whole...
Which I'm a fan of.
Exactly.
Like making me unlock more maps.
Well, I like the shaped Atlas strategy as well. It's just, it was too good before the introduction of Shaper strongholds. There was little to no reason to go for a full unlock. And now...
Now it feels like you can do both. Like, it feels like if I'm going to race at the beginning of a league, I'm going to run my shaped Atlas, my fully shaped Atlas. But as soon as that race is over, I sort of start to feel like I'm missing out unless I do these other red maps. Now I want to do more maps. And that feels good. Like, I like that there's that change now, whereas before you would set up your shaped Atlas to whatever tier it was you were comfortable running, and then you would never touch it for the rest of the league. There was never any reason to change. There was a bunch of red maps I really liked running, but if I went and unlocked them and ran them, I'd get all the shit ones around them. It just wasn't worth doing. Now there's more and more reasons to have them all unlocked, and I like that. I'm a fan of that.
No, absolutely.
It's just another thing, another good incentive to have more maps unlocked. It's great.
I agree.
I think that this league is, again, like, the whole idea of it is emphasizing another approach of maps in a way that makes it gives us a new incentive to do things in a very good way because it increases variety. And I think that's something that the game has been forcing us into a state of repetitive grinding, which is the core baseline of the game, but also with next to zero variety. This is now granting us that spark of variety to the league as well. And I think that is probably one of the best parts of this 3.5 patch. That together with the streamlined changes is what I think could be one of the most enjoyable leagues in a long time, at least for me.
Oh,
Combined with the fact that we
about
get
this-
yeah. Please.
Sorry.
I think the best part of this is that someone else is going to be able to make me a hideout, and I'm going to be able to load in a nice hideout without doing any of the work. That's the bit I'm most excited about.
I thought you were going to say the best thing is going to be that we get a completely revamped Atlas. Maps are shifting around in tiers and positions, and
that's going to be great.
It's going to be a new game to figure out. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
I love
great.
the Atlas rotating. I just want to say that I hope they do that every third month. Like, I don't even care if it's a static rotation. I just want to see they scramble the fucking maps, and that would be amazing.
I don't even care if they literally put them all on a list and hit shuffle, and then just slot them back in a random order.
Yeah, and that would be fine, right?
That's fine.
Everyone would be so happy, and all they just need to do that.
Maybe one league, you get like the very best map in the very best location, and you're like, look at this, I can put all 5 white sextants on the best map in the world, this league, and that's fine because you could just hit the shuffle button next time and then it's gone.
Exactly.
I love the change. The change is great.
That's again another point of variety.
Sorry for E though.
I think that's similar to changing up the passive skill tree. It's important for the older veteran players, for the returning players to have changes like that, because like we said earlier, a large part of the difficulty of the game is actually figuring out what is good to do and what is bad to do. Changes like that reset your game knowledge to closer to zero are a good thing, because you'll have to go in there with this pioneer mindset again. Okay, I'm gonna try to find the best thing to do.
Yeah, more changes. Oh, I also like it when they mess with the Atlas. I love it when they also mess with the densities, but they don't tell us what the new ones are. Just, we've changed the densities in a bunch of maps and we've removed the tiers, and now you have to figure out what's good
exactly. I love that aspect as well.
It's great.
Like, I had this idea where I would love to see, like, again, this is my personal opinion, I would love to see them scramble the Atlas on like a set amount of days. Like once a week they would scramble the Atlas. Now I would love that, but there are people that would prefer the consistency. So from trying to cater to everyone, I'm very happy with them scrambling the Atlas every new league. That is enough for me to get that variety that I seek in the game. So that's very, very fun for me, at least, to see. And I hope they consistently do this now for every third month, that they scramble the Atlas. And the density changes would be amazing to see as well. More often being taking place.
Hopefully they keep doing it at least semi-regularly.
Yeah.
Because it definitely spices stuff up. I like it.
But it's like you said, all they have to do is list the maps, click scramble, place them back in, and that would be enough for us to be satisfied. That's the crazy part. That would literally be enough to satisfy us.
It wouldn't fit lore-wise, though. If you go through maps on the Atlas, the entrances and exits of a lot of maps literally match up. Like, if you look at the tile sets, they literally match the entrances to next tiers. Like, the whole thing is thematically as if you're traveling through a one place. It's actually ridiculous.
Through a continent, yeah. You have the reefs and the strands on the sides, ridiculous. And the mountain stuff towards the middle of the map. It is ridiculous. Yeah. That's true.
I have played around 20,000 hours of this game, and I have never thought or noticed or cared about that ever.
I don't care either, but I have noticed. I still would like them to do just straight up shuffle, because I don't care about that sort of thing. But plenty of people do. And if you run a tier 1 map and then the tier 2 map connected to it, you'll notice that the entrance of your tier 2 map looks like it comes off the tier 1 it was connected to. And that happens throughout the entire Atlas.
I never noticed. And then again, you don't always go from one tier 1 to the next, from one tier to the exact same next tier at all times because of the RNG of drop rates. But I guess, that would make sense. But, I hate to be vulgar about this, but fuck it. I just want to scramble the shit, okay?
I also don't care. I'd like to scramble it, but
there's really a lot of ways how you can make it work. Like, mountainsides don't have to be in the middle. Like of course, like shore sides, strand, beach, and everything that should be sort of on the edge of the map. But there's a lot of ways to make sense of it. Like, you don't always have mountains on the middle. You could also have them on the side. You could also have, a city square on the coast. Who knows? But out of the...
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you can make sense out of it somehow for the people that care, and I think the large majority wants a good game rather than a fitting lore. Like, the lore is secondary objective, somewhat.
I actually don't even know why they went to that trouble, because, like, it's all basically other realms and dream realms. Like, they don't actually have to fit together, but they do. They all fit together like it's a puzzle.
Exactly,
Really
it doesn't have to
have
make
to.
sense.
They really don't have to. They're all dreams and other realms, and it doesn't actually have to.
Exactly. If the Shaper can create these worlds and shift them around at will, why would he do it in a way that you can find it in the real world? Why?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, but it is. It's weird, but yeah.
Okay. Any opinions about channel map tier 1 now? Easy tabular farming, people maybe spending less time in Blood Aqueducts?
Oh, yeah, I love this. I love the fact that we are able to move away from the godforsaken Blood Aqueduct. Now, I'm not sure, again, for those people that don't play a lot of hours like many of us do, I'm sure that you guys are doing the same as me. Even in hardcore soccer, doesn't matter what leagues you're playing, you get to Blood Aqueducts on league start at about, 6-7 hours, maybe faster? I get there about 6 hours. And then I'm level between 58 and 62. That's the usual level, depending on the league, and it's about 6 hours into the league. Then I stay there for not 10 levels. I stay there for 12 levels. And I don't leave after 12 levels unless I have my tabula. So I stay there for 12 levels plus minus tabula. Then I finish the content of the acts.
But you are known.
Once I got out of there in 8 levels, and I was so happy. I left 8 levels later with tabula, and I was like, "This is the best leagues ever. Let's go."
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? You only leave earlier if you have tabula, and the level I leave when I have a tabula is 68. I never leave before 68 if I have a tabula. That still means 10 levels of fucking Blood Aqueduct farming before I finish it. Mainly because the Blood Tabula helps so much for the last boss as well with the Kitawa fight. But then again, this means that if you have a build or you play in a party that is able to deal with Kitawa with less sockets, like a Spectre build, for example, you can do it on a fucking 3-link if you want to, and that's fine, right? And you're able to finish off the acts, and you can start getting your tabula in a channel map. That is just so lovely. You don't have to stay till fucking level 70 in Blood Aqueducts just because you have to get a tabula.
And honestly, I'm happy to do Katava and a 4-link on most characters. That's fine, even on hardcore. Like, I just would like to be able to get into maps and still be able to get my tabula.
Honestly, Ghazzy...
But if I went and did Katava, I'd just go back to Aqueducts to get a tabula to go mapping in because it's better.
But that's the thing. You don't want to go back for farming it because the drop rate goes down.
Yeah.
Because of the drop rate penalties, you don't want to leave there. Once you got there, if you know you're going to need a tabula before mapping or when you start mapping, then it's more effective time-wise to stay there till you have your tabula because of the drop rate penalties.
Super happy to just have it in maps. Just be like, okay, I can enter maps and to hang around in tier 1 maps for a while, getting masters and breaches and whatever else, all the cool stuff that happens in maps, and get all that instead of just running Blood Aqueducts. Although I do actually hate the channel map, but I also probably only hate channel because of how long I spend in Blood Aqueducts, and that it's basically the same bloody map.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the map itself, but the actual layout of channel. But what it does, it moves us from getting stuck in Act 9 to actually play the game, and then we can do this farming channel map, where we don't get the experience penalty the same way either. I mean, it's completely different from the action of the content. And suddenly we're able to play the game in a much more fun way at the same time as we can build up a map pool whilst farming Tabula in channel allows us to get a ton of tier 1 maps, which you can then flip over to tier 2s, potentially even move over to the state of tier 3s from the maps you drop from a tier 1 map, being channel in this case. And that is a really good thing because that helps the Atlas progression at the same time. So this is just this is just
moves my boring early league farm actually into endgame maps.
Exactly,
it's actually fantastic.
I just want to quickly say I'm not a big fan of tabulas. I just tend to die a lot faster when I wear a tabula, and I don't feel like... The thing is, if your build needs a 6-link before you hit yellow maps, then it's a bad build. That's just my opinion. And I'd much rather...
You're not gonna like the reply.
It's a bad build or it's a summoner build. Like,
come on, man.
I'm gonna say, this is not a, this just doesn't sound friendly at all. If you feel like your build is better on a 5-link with some average armor instead of a tabula with a 6-link, you're probably not playing right.
Yeah, I actually like to have a little bit of a safety cushion. I just like to not be instantly one-shot by 5 melee mobs hitting me at the same time. And not wearing a tabula and actually wearing evasion or armor gear or even hybrid gear, believe it or not, makes a big difference at that point in the game.
Okay, I'll do BalorMage one better with this, trying to be as friendly as possible. Are you ready, Kat?
Yep.
If you're dying because of your chest piece not having 200 armor, or
1,000, I'd say around that point, like 500 to 1,000.
Okay, sure, 1,000 armor, which we already know that armor is completely useless in this game.
Small hits, many small hits. But yeah, please.
Yeah.
Okay, well, okay, so if that's the reason you're dying, then you're not playing right, or your build is actually really bad, because in a tabula with 6-link, you wouldn't take many small hits; they would be dead to start with.
The point is to kill them.
If use resistances, then there's a gearing issue on all the other parts.
Okay, I think I have to disclose the fact that I'm actually not a very good player, and that I'm really new
that explains everything.
New to the streaming thing, and oftentimes I'll read stream chat or I'll interact with chat and I'll start going off on a tangent and talking about things, and just things happen on the screen where the game is running and I just lose track, and all of a sudden I open a strongbox that has freeze and DD, and I don't have a freeze remove flask or it's not full, and then doesn't matter whether you wear a tabula or not, you're dead. But there is situations where it does matter. That's all I'm trying to say. And I personally,
there are
for me,
a few instances where I would put on a 5-link chest instead of a tabula. If I'm a jug, maybe.
The thing is, most of the time I play.
No, even then, I lied. Even on my jug league start,
I know a situation where I would use a 5-link over a 6-link as a tabula.
Righteous Fire.
Well, there's that, but a Vis Mortis. I would use a 5-link Vis Mortis over tabula.
Yeah, and one of those totem chests that I can't remember the name of right now.
Even a fucking
Soul Mantle.
Yeah.
I'd wear that.
Okay.
5-link Cloak of Flame, boys. Easy. That mitigation.
That go if you were going mom and you couldn't get over there, and that was part of your build.
Cloak of Flame, not
If that
Defiance.
was going to be your Cloak of no, you lost me then. Sorry.
I mean, I would consider the Defiance actually. That would be
I consider the Defiance.
But I can't think of anything else more than I'd rather use if you're having issues with surviving, I'd rather use a 4-link and a Calm's Heart rather than a tabula, I guess.
Yeah, but that's an availability problem. I don't think you usually have the choice.
Better, right?
Yeah, I can't league start Farmer Combs on demand.
We just get the
not day one anyway.
Yeah, Actually, Ashrand is a really good point. Like, what I'm trying to say is I mostly play Path of Exile. I mostly play Blade Vortex on League Start, or in the past have played. I try to avoid it nowadays because it's just, if you play the same skill for a long time, it just gets not very entertaining for the stream to watch and for yourself. And if you're not entertained yourself, then you're less entertaining to the stream and stuff. But if I was playing from a pure efficiency standpoint, I'd be league starting Blade Vortex every single time. And I feel at the point where you get a Tabula, you also want to run and either triple Herald or a Hatred and a Herald or a Hatred and a Blasphemy Warlord's Mark or something like that. And you just won't have the mana to sustain a 6-link cost. But, maybe I'm also playing it wrong. Maybe I should be using a mana flask.
Yeah, you should. I'm sorry.
I don't like mana flasks. I'd really try hard not to put one on. I'll do almost everything to not wear a mana flask.
Yeah, like the Blasphemy Warlord's Mark.
But I won't drop a 6-link. If I have to use a mana flask to keep my Tabula on, then that's what I'll do. And I won't replace the Tabula. I'll be running red maps in Mayhem races in hardcore, still in my Tabula, because I haven't managed to get a 6-link yet. I will not drop the Tabula until I have an armor that's 6-linked.
Unless there are very, very specific scenarios where you
without
finally, like if it's Mortis, for example, for Spectre focus builds and whatnot, but that's very build specific scenarios. Yeah. But I mean, this discussion that we ended up in here, ganging up on Catmaster, I'm so sorry. I hope you survive.
I'm sorry. We love you.
This shows how very different we as content creators, not just the player base, like if you're looking at the player base as a whole, but we have a lot of content creators that we play the game very differently as well. Like Vaal, you play very differently, I play very differently, and Catmaster plays very differently, obviously. I'm just saying that there's a difference in the way we play the game and the way we enjoy it, and that also makes us view different aspects of the game very differently, such as the efficiency of, let's say, a Tabula in this case, where Catmaster thinks that it's not as good as it actually is, and me and Baller actually knows.
Well, it is as good as it actually is, but is it worth spending 15 levels in Blood Aqueducts? That's the question. Yes. When I would already be in tier 4 or 5 maps, you're still farming that Tabula in Blood Aqueducts.
Correct, but when we get to tier 10s, you're now in tier 6s. It's worth the slowdown there because it speeds up afterwards, and that stays with you forever.
Yeah. Like we ramp up everything. And Catmaster, you play hardcore, right? As well.
Recently, the last half year, almost exclusively solo self-found hardcore. But before that, hardcore Trade League in Abyss and in.
Because I thought it was mainly hardcore, right?
Yeah, definitely mainly hardcore.
So I mean, in hardcore, you also have to think about the fact that once you get that 6-link, we are also, before we finish the acts, that is safer for us, or for those players that are getting Tabula early on. The content becomes safer for us because we have that 6-link available, where someone who decides to go on without it is by default gimping their own survivability, which is something I will be doing in the next league because of Tabula being available in a tier 1 map.
Wait, you're gimping your survivability by not wearing a Tabula, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because you're gimping your offenses, and your offenses are defenses.
The best defense is offense, especially with the current state of the game, where player speed, meta, and power creeping is such a pressing detail of the game right now. The more offense you have,
6 seconds instead of 10, you only have to dodge 2 attacks instead of 5.
Exactly. That doesn't add up. 6 to 10 is 3 to 5, please.
Okay, take the Depraved Trinity boss, for example.
Yeah.
So in the maps, super modded. Now, that's the same thing as being, if I decide to go for a defensive ascendancy on the Necromancer, I can be very, very tanky and survive a lot of hits from this person. Or I can just take Bone Sculptor and I will face the boss and she dies, or whatever it is, will die in less than half a second and skip all the phases. That's a best example. Labyrinth being the GC Mines shenanigans faces it, and you never have to dodge anything because you have so much offense, making you 100% safe, right? And that's kind of the same thing when it comes to having the Tabula early on, because you're killing everything so much faster that you're not forced to dodge the stuffs. Kitava, for example, as we talked about that before, that's fairly easy as well on a 4-link, as we talked about as well. However, having a tabula will trivialize the content more or less. You're very safe because you only have to dodge one ability, which happens before you've done enough damage for the boss to transition. So he only does like one wave arm, he smacks his penis out on the ground and just slaps it all the way across. You just dodge that penis, you're good, right? And that's basically...
Where did the penis come from?
That's his big arm thing. Like he goes zip, thunk.
Jesus Christ.
Ghazzy knew. He knew the soft spot and he's poking it. Oh, God. Well, I think we've decided that we're not going to come to an agreement about the tabula, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys die really, really early in Tier 1 maps after completing your tabula in in Betrayal.
Joke's on you, I'm
going
actually,
to Tier 1 maps.
Joke's on you, because I'm actually considering, for the first time in a very long time, to start a league off in softcore. I'm actually considering it.
I changed over to softcore this league. And I felt burnout like I didn't normally.
I played both leagues this league. I only did one build in softcore, but I'm considering to do softcore in the next for a lot of reasons. But I will try out softcore, see how I enjoy it, because I've played hardcore for a lot of years now. So we'll see.
But historically, you've been doing a lot of parallel hardcore and softcore in leagues. I've seen that before. That you've done certain builds in softcore rather than in hardcore, or is it all? I mean. That's my impression.
I've done tests in standard. I've used standard as a sandbox, but not the template softcore.
Oh, I thought you did actually play parallel template softcore sometimes.
Okay. Once it's happened, but otherwise I've been in hardcore, and then I use standard as a sandbox. Usually after I'm dead, and then tune the things before I make a guide for it to fix certain issues if I encounter anything and stuff like that. But I'm actually considering to try softcore as a start and see how I enjoy it. Considering I started playing this game and enjoyed it for so long, 1.5 years of only playing standard, I figured that if I could just go back to the roots, because of the reason I mentioned before, I felt burnt out during Delve after 28,000 hours in this game, that I think that going back to trying out how softcore feels for me might re-spark my enjoyment that I had back in the days. So I'm going to do some tests for my own sake of enjoyment of the game and see how I feel about it. Maybe I'll come back to hardcore because I love hardcore.
What do you think about that, BalorMage, having played the last league in softcore?
I think you'll get bored. I did. I went to softcore because I wanted to diggy hole as deep as I could without doing an immortal build, because that felt like cheating. And I just got bored. There's a point at which it just wasn't.
But that's my concern. I'm concerned.
I got bored because in hardcore I think I got bored at the same rate. But then what happens is I'll go with a build that I'm not really comfortable with the Uber Elder fight yet, and I'll be like, oh well, fuck, I don't need this character anymore. Let's go see if I can kill Uber Elder, and then I'll die and I'm forced to make a new one, and that didn't happen. And so I just kept going, and I just kept trying, and I kept getting upgrades and making it better, and
no, I've been
kept
there.
getting better and better, but I was still just sort of it didn't die when I went and it took me 3 portals, but now I could just go again, and so I don't feel like I should make a new character. I'm not forced into it. I don't know. I guess I like being punished.
There was a situation once I don't even remember which build it was. I was so bored. It was a BV build. I was so bored of the build because I played it so much, and I died 3 times during the race. I was 94, 95 or something, and I was about to lose the race. It was 3rd character because I was going back to go work because I work part-time. And I saw that I was not going to be able to compete with that character. So I figured, I can't be honest with this. I'd rather play a new build, but since I set out to do this, I was like standing in shit, having, full damage one. I just stopped moving out of stuffs and whatnot, standing in everything. I'm like, oh, I survived this as well. And then, I didn't want to make the stream disappointed in me losing hope in my character. So I kept trying, right? Half-assed. Went into bosses I shouldn't be going into and whatnot. And you just kept surviving it, like not clicking my flask, started doing that. And, ended up in really sketchy situations. And then like, oh, I forgot my flask. Click the flask. And eventually, finally, after 3 days of that, I got one shot. With flasks up for that matter. But I mean,
but then you get to go make a new build.
Yes, and then I love the game after that. League was amazing after that.
That's the reason I don't like softcore. It's because I feel like I can't give up.
But that's the thing. Like I played standard for 1.5 years, and once I got bored, I started doing endgame crafting, and I loved that aspect of the accumulating a ton of wealth and then just completely destroying 9 mirrors worth of currency on stupid crafts that no one will ever mirror service. Back in the days, that's called summoner items. And there were people mirror servicing them, not many, but a few. So, tons of currency into this for no good reason. And then, they fucked it over with the Masters release and whatnot. And I just corrupted some of them and gave away the rest. And, that's the way I treated standard. And to get more enjoyment, I went back to hardcore. Or, well, not go back, but I started playing hardcore leagues. And that's what rekindled my enjoyment of the game back then. So now I'm going to try the other way around. But if I get bored, I'll go back to hardcore again, obviously.
Okay, so my personal point on, or my personal view on this is, having been a hardcore player for the majority of the time that I played Path of Exile, I felt I was completely out of touch at a point where Atlas of Worlds was released, Essence League, because I was working a full-time job at the time, and I didn't really have that much time to play Path of Exile next to it. I just felt so out of touch. I didn't know which bosses in which map, which maps to get from recipe only and stuff. There were so many stupid deaths that could have been prevented by a little bit more knowledge that I decided to play both Breach League and Legacy League in softcore. And the consequence was that I just ended up making a lot less builds per league. I don't know, I just, throughout the entirety of Legacy, I really played only one build. And Legacy was like a 6-month league almost, right? And I only played Fire Nova Mine Chaos Conversion, because originally I thought I could get Legacy Consuming Darks and just, annihilate everything. But if I look at the build now, it feels really bad, and it feels as if if I really haven't been trying to make the build good, because I didn't care. Like, I could just throw myself at content, and it was fun. I did like 20, 30, 40 Hydras in that league, just in order to learn Hydra mechanics. But I could have made it so much easier if I actually cared about making the build viable, but I didn't care because it didn't matter whether I died once or twice or 3 times, as long as I would get the boss down. And I feel that took a lot of the enjoyment out of the game for me personally. I can see why people play it, and I still think to the very day it made me a better player, because I engaged with a lot of content that I would typically avoid in hardcore, or avoid doing for the first time in hardcore unless I'm really sure about it. Like, it lowered the threshold to go into endgame fights, to go into higher maps. But I think beyond that, it wouldn't have benefited my fun. I just really wanted to go back to hardcore.
I think that emphasizes more on the way we play the games. I think that for the generic player base, that is based around how you as a player enjoy the game. When we look at content creators, YouTubers, streamers, whatever, us content creators, we play the game for not just our own amusement, but for a lot of other reasons as well. Now, I have the most build guides on the forums of all content creators on PoE, and as many people know, my focus is around making actual build guides, and I maintain them as the best I can. I consider my build guides to be fairly high in quality. And for me to get to that point, I don't want to release a build guide that is not min-maxed or not optimal or not polished enough to be considered a good build. I want to make sure that all my build guides are as the best quality that I can make them. And with that in mind, it doesn't matter if I'm in softcore or hardcore in a sandbox standard league. they will be optimized when I'm finished with them, which means I don't have that problem if I'm in softcore league, because I will be min-maxing it. I will be testing its capabilities. And that's something that's good in softcore for the sake of that. Because what happens with my build guides is that I usually don't release a guide unless I was successful in doing everything I wanted to within hardcore. Or when it's dead in hardcore, I do the test in standard to verify this build can do this, it can do this and that and that. It will be hard for this, going through all of these things. And I do that in standard league. Whereas softcore, it will allow me to do those tests in the league itself. I can continuously play it, make a guide, and then during the time I'm still playing it, be able to figure out solutions or test out variations of it, and then report back on the guide for it. Which means that I would be able to benefit for the sake of my content playing in softcore, for example, for that sake of doing guides. But that's not about my personal amusement or enjoyment of playing the game in that way. That has more to do with the type of content I enjoy to create, which is separate from the way the generic player base is playing the game, because the focus there is how they're enjoying the actual game, of how they play and what they play.
I agree, and I say that that's the biggest argument in favor of playing softcore for me personally, is actually the content creation side of things, because I won't stop playing a build when it's dead, but I'll actually min-max it until it's done, until I consider it done. Maybe I would do that now, but I didn't do that in the past. But that's also a completely different approach, because back then I wasn't a content creator, I was just playing the game for my own amusement. I had that problem a lot of times, that I had really interesting builds and then they just died, and I just lost interest in releveling them or making a guide for them.
Yeah, because I mean, a problem with hardcore is that if you end up, let's say you play a new build, a new skill is coming out. This is also one of the reasons why I think the software could be good, at least in the start for me. Let's say there's a new ability, either dancing steel or whatever, one of the steel abilities, right? You want to do this as a guide. You play in hardcore, something happened. Innocent thinks you look really shitty and deserves to die. You get fucked over. Packet loss, you dead. You get one shot at somewhere else. You make a mistake and die. You have at this point re-leveled the same new ability or build 5 times, and you still haven't reached a point where you can test it and min-max it and work with it because of unfortunate situations. Maybe you failed, maybe you didn't, maybe you got unlucky. It doesn't really matter. But hardcore puts you in a situation where you're unable to test these things if you die. There's a big if before you're able to create the content that you want to do for it as a content creator. And that has been my only problem with hardcore. Otherwise, I actually prefer hardcore on a generic point of view, because hardcore gives me that extra thrill. It gives me that extra adrenaline when I'm playing, right? But it doesn't give me that safety of knowing that I'll start this character now, 12 to 20 hours from now, I will be able to have a full-fledged build guide for this character with everything tested. I don't have that I can't promise that when I'm playing hardcore. Because in hardcore, it would be, as long as I don't, I will have this done.
Yeah, that's definitely a really, really good reason to be playing softcore.
No, absolutely. But then again, that's very niche, because it's a content creator's point of view on it. And then, we have the streamer entertainment. I'm sure hardcore might, to some degree, might be more entertaining for the sake of the deaths, right? But then again, who wants to watch a player level from Act 1 to 10 6 times in one evening? Then he suddenly is not entertaining. And that can happen from unfortunate situations.
Depends. During race practice, it can be entertaining to see what someone run Act 1 like 10 times in a row, if they're consistently getting better or like changing their strategy, trying different things. But
absolutely.
I realized there was a good segue here, and that was not segue, and that was the going away from the need. In hardcore, you always want to play the best possible skill, or among the best possible skills. In softcore, you got at least, the illusion of free choice. Like you can play any skill in softcore. That's maybe something, because there's certainly skills or archetypes of builds that I won't necessarily play in hardcore.
You're able to be more niche in softcore. You can play the funnier, squishier builds, because you don't have to have the, that worry of dying for the sake of testing something. Which is why I usually test my builds before a guy is great after it's died in hardcore in standard league, because then it's dead, it's done. You done fucked up now. Let's just test this, push the limits, right? But you don't get that in softcore because you already have that around you, right? The only thing you can waste is currency. What's the next topic we're at right now?
I wanted to ask you. I think we're finishing up the Betrayal hype, the announcement. I was gonna ask you guys now.
We're only like an hour behind.
Yeah, it's okay. Is there any notable mentions? Anything that you're really interesting? Obviously, we don't know the numbers on the new skills that have been announced, but we get brands, we get banners, we get the Winter Orb that we were just already chatting about in chat. Is there anything you guys are looking forward? Winter Orb is going to be pretty cool, I think.
The banners look really interesting, especially for a support, but I have no idea where I'm going to find room for it in a support build. I don't have a spare button to press.
I'm thinking
we need more buttons.
Brands. Yeah, we need more action bars. I agree with that. I like the brands. I think the brands could potentially be the next Worm Blaster. That's what I'm thinking. But honestly, I think everyone is so hyped over the Winter Orb. I'm not sure if it's something that is going to be overhyped, because I feel that a majority of, let's take 100 players that is going to be, well, X amount of players will play the new skills or the reworked skills, right? I think that the majority of them will either test or use or really force the Winter Orb into their builds. And basically because of how it reminds them of the Frozen Orb in Diablo 2 Sorcerers, right? And I really feel that it is just overhyped. Maybe it's broken, because usually new skills in PoE is either broken or they're, let's not go too much into the spectral shit throw ability. The spectral shield throw might be called. I think it was shit throw.
They're not great. I think it's intentional that they try and release them strong so that people use them and nerf them later. But
they certainly failed on the
sometimes they miss. Yeah, sometimes they miss.
They certainly under-nerfed Elemental Hit quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like to say in the chat, they're either overpowered or underpowered, and that's kind of sad at the same time. Especially as we talked about from what we know of the league, everything is more and more focused around doing different type of maps, right? So everything is oriented around mapping in different aspects in different ways, which means that you can choose to play a new skill, which might be extremely underwhelming and puts you in a very ineffective slot, which means that you might have to rebuild your character or re-level a new one. Or you could be super strong, right? And then just, enjoy. So you can either play a new skill, or you play, a safe league starter build, or you play a safe build that has a really high click speed.
That's always a problem for us. It's always a problem for us streaming too. Like league, the league that Charged Dash came out.
Oh god.
I league started as Charged Dash, really hoping it would be good. It was so bad. It was so bad. It was so bad. I stuck with it for like 4 days. It was the worst. It couldn't do anything.
I was playing Spectral Shit Throw on release, which got sorted with a little bit mid-tier items. But when you are among the first 20 players doing maps, the mid-ranged items don't exist on the market. And when they finally do, they're either instantly purchased or cost 5 times, your left arm. And my left arm was worth quite a lot because I had the highest armor shield available on the fucking league at that point, and I was still not doing damage. I mean, what the hell am I supposed to do? So I wasted an entire league start. I was so sad. I was so grumpy and salty for days about that. But that's the thing.
Grumpy about that.
But speaking of that topic, and with the risks involved of it, what are you guys planning? Are you guys, without knowing patch notes, like what's your point right now? Are you going to be looking into playing a new skill, or are you going to feel like, hey, we're going to do a clear speed, like maybe not BV because I think everyone's getting bored of it, but a clear speed build, and then with currency go back to the new skills? What's your plans?
Well, we don't have the balanced patch notes yet, but if they don't,
without knowing it,
I wanted to emphasize it again. If they don't touch Toxic Rain, and that's not saying without knowing it, because I want to know it before, but if they don't touch Toxic Rain, I think Toxic Rain is a really, really strong starter.
Okay. What's your take
Chances
on it?
are I'll be playing support.
Wow, that sounds
Not sure that we're going to race, but we're going to race up to tier 15 maps and just make a buttload of money in the first week, because anyone that's made it to like tier 15, 16 maps in the first like 2 days knows how much money you can make selling red maps.
Yeah, that
It's
is beautiful.
You can buy a headhunter every second day if you want. Way
Pretty
quicker
much.
than farming a headhunter. It's way better than magic farming. It's way better than everything. So I think we rolled for it, and it looks like I'm going support. I lost.
I'm so sorry to hear that, but that's actually a solid way to play.
But we want to have a buttload of money, and I want to do a buttload of things. So
currency does help.
Yep. And the best way to do that is have a carry and a support. But I don't know what kind of support yet, because he doesn't know what kind of carry he's going to do yet.
Well, patch notes not out, so just speculating.
So
I'm actually probably, because I'm playing softcore as well, looking into making something out of new abilities, depending on the patch notes, obviously. But I think I'll rather focus on that, to be honest. But mainly because I'm playing softcore. Because it allows me to have a shit build, and I can rework it and be squishy as hell without that being a problem, right?
yeah, if you find it dies over and over again because of crap mechanically, you're not actually dead and stuck re-leveling it.
Yeah,
Keep going, see if you can fix it, and if you can't fix it in half a day, you go, oh, bugger it, we'll just respec it to something that actually works then.
Exactly, we're
Got
just
that
all a
option.
new one. And then, it's all fine, right? Because of the fact that I'm going to try it on softcore.
Yeah, that's a really good point, I feel. And also with the introduction of custom leagues, we're going to talk about a little bit later if we still have the time. It takes a little bit pressure off of that initial choice, which league I'm going to start in, because like I think maximum 1 or 2 months in, there's going to be a bunch of custom leagues made by streamers, content creators, or like any community members, basically, and you'll be able to start in a new league, hardcore, where like previously it was always for me, I really want to start hardcore because that's the league I want to play. If I start in softcore, then I'm just penalizing myself like for 2 weeks or whatever the time is that I start in softcore. Yeah. Anyway, I think that covers our opinions about the 3.5 announcement, and deeply tied into that, or like another announcement that we want to talk about, is the big tragedy of the Diablo Immortal announcement. Whereas I had a good segue that I just messed up. They claim they are immortal. We must prove they are not. Was a sentence that fell in the trailer for the Betrayal League. And very obviously it's easy to read a jab at Blizzard into this, but as we found out on Reddit, Chris Wilson already told us all that the voice recordings were done way before the Diablo Immortal announcement, so...
Just literally the best coincidence that's ever happened.
Without a doubt. I made a tweet. Hold on, we'll see if I can find it. I made a tweet to Bex some time ago, well, a private message as well, but somebody mentioned and wrote, this tweet aged well. Let's see if I can find it. Right, here we go. I wrote, I seriously hope that the league is going to be called Immortal. It would be the biggest knockout hit ever heard in any gaming history, like putting the last nail on the coffin with a goddamn nuke, because your big red button is much bigger than theirs. Yeah, and then we watch the trailer and they say that, and everyone just blows up, right? It's just crazy. But again, I think everyone's overreacting. Don't you guys have phones?
Yeah. There's just some of the best memes this year came out of that announcement. Do you guys think that the adverse reaction that Blizzard received at BlizzCon was deserved? Do you think that the community overreacted?
No. It was definitely deserved.
No, I think that the game might be good. I don't know, but it was not the right forum to announce it. You could do it like, was it Bethesda? They release some, I don't know what game it was, Morrowind, Skyrim, whatever, and they were like, oh, we got this on the mobile, and everyone's like, okay. They end the shit with a big scenery over the hills, and up comes, what was it? There was Morrowind. It was it Skyrim or something like that. They had. I don't even remember.
I forget what it was, but
There was a biggest title, right? Coming up there. If Diablo Immortal, they would have said, "Hey, we got this Diablo Immortal on the mobile platform." No reaction, and it's gonna be awesome, right? Everyone's like, "Fuck, right, when are we going home?" And then once they finished with this fiasco, would have like a big ass screen coming up saying Diablo 4. They didn't even have to make a video. All they had to do was a poster of Diablo 4, being scrolled down, or a guy with a flag coming in waving, "Oh, Diablo 4." That would have been enough to shut the entire online community down. No one would be bitching about Diablo Immortal if they would have given just a teeny tiny hint that they're actually working on Diablo 4. It could be 50 years till they release it. No one would bat an eye against Diablo Immortal if they just would have done that.
There's only two reasons that make any sense that they didn't do that. One, they're either not working on it at all, which as much as we'd like for that not to be the case, maybe it is. Or two, they've been working on it, but they have no idea if it's ever actually going to be released, and no idea whether it's going to become a shippable product or not. Those are the only two options left.
What bothers me
because if it wasn't one of those, you would have said something.
What bothers me with the announcement of Diablo Immortal and the Q&A is that basically they announced Diablo Immortal. They didn't know anything either. They didn't know anything. They couldn't answer any of the questions properly. They couldn't answer whether hardcore would be a thing. They couldn't answer whether there would be, meaningful choice in terms of how you can build a character. They didn't know. They couldn't answer most of the questions. And at that point, I'm asking myself, why even announce a product like that? And why announce it to your most hardcore fans? The most hardcore part of your target group, the audience that actually buys tickets for BlizzCon and comes in. Some people fly hundreds, thousands of kilometers to go there. Yeah, and those are the most hardcore players. Why would they care about a mobile game? And I just don't understand how, as a developer, you cannot see that ahead of time, that it would be stupid, outright stupid to announce it like that.
And the biggest problem was it was a PR nightmare right from the word go.
Absolutely.
The problem wasn't renouncing the game. No one would have given a crap about them putting out a mobile game. It's not aimed at us. It's not aimed at ARPG fans. That's not the market that mobile phone game is after. And it might be a good phone game. I don't care, and neither do most of the people who play ARPGs on computers. That is a different market. It may very well be super successful in that market because they haven't actually pissed off any of those people. They don't have any games like this in the market yet. This is their first entrance into that, and it'll be their first engagement with the community that wants that kind of game.
Exactly.
So they didn't piss any of them off. It may still be a great mobile game as far as mobile games go, and it may still be super successful. I don't actually care either way. But they marketed it to us for 6 months before BlizzCon as if we were going to get something good that we wanted.
Yeah.
They
6 months before,
they gave us nothing.
Like the way they market it and the way they promote it, it's catering to the wrong people. They're promoting it to the wrong type of player base. And like I said, people are paying hundreds of dollars for flight tickets, for tickets to sit in those chairs, and hotel stay and whatnot, food, all of these costs to be there. And then they just shove up this big ass thing right through their rear, and rotate it a few times, and then like, are you satisfied? Like, no, that's not what I came for, but thank you, I guess. That's basically what they did. And it's just so sad to see, and it feels more like they are losing touch with their player base. But this has been an ongoing downward spiral, at least from Blizzard's point of view, since Blizzard North. And I mean, that's a lot of years. And it's just been happening.
Actually affected their stock price and everything as well.
So absolutely. Quite drastic.
This blowout from the internet this time has been so large, investors have pulled out, their stock price has gone down. And not in connection to the rest of the market that does generally go up and down a little and fluctuate. They've gone down all on their own, separate to the market. They have lost value because of this announcement.
I think they could have done, well, obviously we know that they could have done this much better. But Blizzard is large enough, and like you said as well, that the game is catering to a completely different player base that is not watching this, that is not viewing this as a fiasco. And basically, what is then happening is that they're in a situation where they are still going to make money out of it. I'm pretty sure that they're going to go, like, they're going to bank from this quite heavily. I'm pretty sure of that. I'm very certain that that will happen, mainly because the target audience is not the guys sitting in those chairs. It's not the guys that are annoyed with it. And there's still a lot of people that might be annoyed with it that still will try the game out, and maybe they'll enjoy it. Who knows? But then again, Blizzard is, like I mentioned before, losing touch with their player base, and this is being shown in many of their other games. And the World of Warcraft specifically that I'm playing, there's a lot of decision making in many of their games that is just completely wrong. And then a lot of things are being viewed as cash grabs from AAA companies, where we're not just Blizzard, and this has been a pressing issue in the entire year for the gaming industry. Even as I mentioned before the podcast, I'm playing Fallout 76 right now, and it took me 3 days to find something that I actually started enjoying in the game. I will give it tonight as well to see if it's going to consist and give me that entertaining factor. But then again, there's already tons of reviews all over the place about Fallout 76 being a complete disaster. And that feels like that's Bethesda, which is an amazingly huge company. Same thing as Blizzard. And what else did we have this year that is a complete fiasco game-wise? It was one more that I was having in mind. Maybe that was last year.
No,
it doesn't matter.
Remember.
So we have a lot of companies that introducing these cash grabs that we're viewing as cash grabs. Back in the days, we would say, "Oh well, whatever," and don't talk too much about it. But we're living in a very connected world, and now we have people actually raising their voice about these things and not accepting. We're putting our foot down and saying we don't accept that AAA companies are releasing garbage to us, or trying to sell us something we don't want, and giving us something they think we want. But no, for them it's about money. For us, it's about what we care about a game, right? And Bethesda's done it, Blizzard has done it. And look at Warcraft, for example. Not the World of Warcraft, not the Owl. We're talking about Warcraft 1, 2, 3, and now Reforged. I mean, I'm more hyped about Warcraft 3 Reforged now than I am for a future possibility of a Diablo 4. I mean, it kind of settles what my hopes for Diablo has landed on after this reveal.
Quick interjection: are you guys actually Diablo players? Like, did you play?
Yeah,
I played it before I came to PoE. Many years.
Crap loads of Diablo 2. Not a lot of Diablo 3 right in the beginning, but it only lasted like 6 months for me. But crap loads of Diablo 2. That was
I played Diablo 2 in my youth, very casually without
that. I'm doing now that I encourage other people to do, though not to copy my thing anyway. Basically, I'm a big advocate of this whole vote with your wallet thing, which basically means when I'm unhappy with how a company is treating people or the direction a company is going in, I just simply stop using that company. And me doing that on my own means nothing. 1,000 people doing that to Blizzard means nothing. But if enough people do that, then it starts to matter. And because of the direction Blizzard's gone with this and the PR fiasco, and as far as I'm concerned, treating their hardcore audience of this game like actual garbage, like they just didn't care. Not because they released a phone game, but because of how it happened and the way they tried to market it to us to begin with and all of these things. And because of that, I just won't even play the Warcraft 3 remastered that actually looked fantastic, and I would have been interested in playing that. But now I look at it and I'm like, I don't like the direction that this company is going. I don't like the way that this company is treating people, and so I just plain won't use their products. And that's just the way I do things now. It's just the whole company is done unless the company changes their behavior. I'm done with them. And I hope that a lot of people start to do that, and I think we're seeing more and more of that sort of stuff, just generally speaking. People
I
get
think
fed
more
up with how
people
they're
are
being treated
joining
and stop.
The problem I see with it is that other people are falling for the peer pressure. It's enough that, let's say you have a group of friends. Like, I don't know what friends are, so maybe you have some. Let's imagine we have friends. Like, imagine you have 5 friends. So you're a group of 6 guys or girls, doesn't
5,
matter.
Jesus.
Yeah, let's just imagine right now. Let it sink in for a few seconds. Okay, I'm there. Okay, so we're a group of 6 people, and oh, this feels good actually. Holy shit! So we're a group of 6 people. Holy shit! We're gonna watch a movie tonight. It's gonna be awesome. Yeah, it's a wine, everything. Holy shit! Whew, that made my day. So these 6 people, 3 of them decides to buy Diablo Immortal. Oh, come on, join us. Come on, play with us. I'm like, no, I don't want anything to do with the company. But eventually, because I want to play with my friends, I will get the game. Now, Warcraft 3 Reforged for me is, to me, probably one of the best games ever made. I've always advocated and said that Warcraft 3 has been the best platform for arcade games ever created on this planet. And with a Reforged, that's going to re-spark that a lot of map creators, they're at today, before this was released or announced, there were still people updating certain maps. I play Warcraft 3 quite consistently when I'm not streaming, sometimes on stream as well, before they announced the Reforged. And now they're releasing a Reforged, which means there will be even more players in a very active community already in Warcraft 3 coming back. There will be map creators coming back to Warcraft 3, updating and creating new maps in what I consider the best arcade platform in the world at the moment. Which means that to me, it's not just about a nostalgic trip. It will just enhance a game that I'm already consistently playing as a time waste or something I have on the side, right? So to me, I don't feel that I can completely skip out on the company, though I feel that with World of Warcraft and I feel that with Diablo, which are still the same company but different games within it. But that's how I feel about it. But again, in this group of 6 people, I would be one of the guys playing Warcraft 3, and I would not be very quiet when I'd tell my friends to get Warcraft 3 Reforged. I would scream at them until they got it, right? I would be there banging on the door at 2 a.m. And until they actually bought the game. That's the kind of guy I am. I've been in jail for it, so I know that I am. So imagine you are 1 out of 2 people in this group of 6 that doesn't get the game. Eventually, most people in your situation in this scenario would actually get the game to play with your friends, right? Especially if it's a game you enjoy, right? Despite your feelings towards the company.
Most people would definitely do that.
Exactly. So now, obviously, there will be exceptions. So to exclude the exceptions, we're still in a situation where, thank you, Rice Cake. Sorry, reading threads. So basically, you're in a situation where you will eventually get the game. A lot of groups will be like this, which means that the game company, in this case, will still get the money. Will still get the money, and the only way to get it changed would be to unanimously together say, no, we're not going to accept this. Put down your foot and say, fuck this. You're not going to get my money anymore, and walk the other way. A lot of people will say it, but a big portion of that group will still buy the product because of other factors like that. Because of factors like us, for example, being content creators. If you have an interest in creating content for, let's say Diablo Immortal, we know no one's crazy enough to do that, but let's just say, for the sake of humoring me. So we do that. We will then play the game and maybe even invest money if it's a buy-to-play game, for example, to create content with it, right? So eventually we are part of the problem, but the only way to get a change would be to have a large enough group say no. And with the bigger the company is, the more people have to say no.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just really hard to force a change. And it seems like we're heading in the direction where change is about to happen. But I'm not sure how long time it's going to take.
This is one of my favorite sayings. Be part of the solution, not the problem. Don't buy it. Don't buy it if you don't like the way it's going. Be one of the people who put your foot down. Now that's, if you don't mind and you want to buy it anyway, that's fine. But I tell people, if you're also shitted off, be part of the solution, not the problem. Be one of the people who puts your foot down and says, no, I'm not interested. I'm not going there anymore.
I think Blizzard is such a huge company that you have to differentiate, though. Like, you cannot, I mean, you can, obviously, and you have the full right to do so, but I personally wouldn't say I'm not buying Warcraft 3 because of the way Diablo is going, because obviously, while there is like a leadership that oversees everything, there's still different divisions of the same company within the same company. And I personally would look forward very much to Warcraft 3 Remastered because I missed the Warcraft 3 train back then. Like, similar to Diablo 2, I just didn't have internet most time when I grew, like, throughout basically the first 18 years of my lifetime at the very least, probably almost 20 years. So only occasionally was able to use the internet at friends' places or, internet cafes, stuff like that. And I just was never able to play the original Dota. I played like maybe 4 or 5 rounds on a friend's computer, like after school, but I'd be super hyped to play that because the original Dota was the reason that I got, similar to Diablo 2 being the reason that I got so much into Path of Exile, the original Dota was the reason for me to start playing League of Legends because I was like, hey, that's a game that I always, like, in principle wanted to try and play, but I missed the train while it was actually a thing, and now there's a new train that I can jump on. And I'd be curious to at least try it out. But I do agree that and I'm happy that I'm not very invested into Diablo, that is something that has a bad aftertaste for a very long time, possibly forever, and they've probably lost a good part of their very, very hardcore Diablo fans just because of the way that this was handled. And
I mean, I'm reading in the chat there, just to cut you off real quick before I forget, they're saying that we should support them when they're doing good things. And I mean, you mentioned, Kat, about the idea of this big company having different, leaders or developer teams and whatnot for Diablo and another for Warcraft, right? But then again, I feel like, yeah, when they're doing something good, they should be positively recognized for that, right? And get that feedback. But there is also a line where something could be treated as horribly as it did with Diablo, which makes people do what Chip Doctor's Chat or BalorMage did. Uninstall everything that has with Blizzard to do. Fuck that company, move aside. But I don't know. Like, there's different ways of handling it, and I'm not sure which one is the right way to do it. Because at some point, every gamer, not just content creators, not just players, everyone, all of us gamers, have to, at a certain point in this corporate world, put down our foot and work together if we want change. The smaller the company, the easier it is for us to change. If in PoE, it's enough that we have, enough of the thousands of players voicing our concern. Reddit is a perfect example of this, how Reddit is bitch and moaned about certain things and changes happen, right? That's never going to happen in Blizzard. You can have a downvoted post with 200,000 downvotes on Reddit on any Blizzard game that will not generate a change. But if enough people don't buy the game and raises the voice saying, we didn't buy this game because of this, that could create change because they're losing money out of it. But it has to be, the bigger the company is, the bigger the change has to be, the more amount of people has to together work for this. And that's so hard to
companies that big, feedback doesn't matter as much as bottom line does.
Exactly.
If you're not affecting their wallet, they don't really care about the feedback. It's too big to care about an individual opinion or even a group of 1,000 people's opinions. You have to actually see it in sales numbers, otherwise it doesn't matter.
Oh, no, exactly.
And I'm certainly not naive enough to think that me not playing Blizzard is going to make any difference to them. But
you're doing your part. That's what's happening. Yeah, you're doing your part.
Just hopefully enough people feel that strongly about it that they do notice.
And maybe you inspire some of them to follow you in that quest. But what do you think, guys? Do we get a lot of ex-Diablo players into our community now? Do we?
Shitload. They've been everywhere.
Yeah, we've already received tons. I set up my stream as a Diablo refugee center.
Yeah,
I'm not even joking. We have
for Diablo people and everything that gets tons.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not joking. We've had tons of people coming in. They've come in. They looked so broken. They were leaning forward, just strolling around, and we've taken them in, providing food, shelter, everything, and just as much knowledge as possible for them to come in and enjoy Path of Exile, to not feel as beaten up. And part of my friends were raped by the company. And I mean, it's really sad that we live in a world that is doing this to them, and it's so sad. So yeah, we have a refugee center set up to take care of these poor gamers.
We should mention that actually the entire PoE community as a whole there's been a few jokes and digs and memes about the Diablo thing, but as far as like ex-Diablo players moving over here, literally everyone has been like nothing but helpful and supportive.
Exactly.
Everywhere you go, even Reddit, which is like
Yeah.
the most toxic part of our community, let's be honest.
Yeah.
The Reddit is the most toxic part of the entire community. And even Reddit has been nothing but helpful. Just help and support and everywhere. It's just ridiculous. Just ridiculous.
But that
It's been
shows
great.
how we gamers work together. That we've managed to even make Reddit become a nice place.
Yeah.
And I mean, PoE, like Chris should give himself a medal and a good pat on the back for that.
We play Ghazzy.
What? For what?
Doesn't matter.
Oh,
Just
God.
everything.
This chat. It's not my fault that you guys are addicted to PoE. Come on. I'm sorry.
I muted myself. Wow.
Oh, hi. Hi, Catmaster. Welcome back.
Wait, were you muted on stream as well, or just from us?
I hard muted my microphone on the preamp. It's actually really good because in software I'm never sure am I muted, am I not muted, or if you use a hotkey or something like that. Here I have like a physical button that I can press and I can see the status. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
I can just, one quick peek and I know people can't hear me.
I have a stream deck for it. It's really nice, actually. That's for stream.
But yeah, do you see? I think we're gonna skip that with the biggest hurdles. We already talked a lot about problems in PoE. I don't want to have any more negative flavor. And I think there's another really big topic that we want to touch upon, and that's the introduction of custom leagues to Path of Exile. And I'd be very happy if you guys could quickly introduce the feature to our audience and talk a little bit about that while I disappear and go to the bathroom before I explode.
Dude, I feel you on that one, and I've been ranting a lot. Vaal, you want to take over so we can take a lead? We're gonna do it together. You good with that?
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
All right, Balor, the fate of the stream is in your hand.
Quick, what do we do while they're gone? What do we do while they're gone? I'm in charge of Catmaster's stream now. This is fantastic. There's nothing I can do from here. I don't have any of the controls. Just one hand. Read them. Oh my god, I'm just waiting for them to like come in beside me. They're like, oh shit. Veiled items opinion. Left Baylor in charge, right? Veiled items opinions. I want to see what a bunch of the mods are, but I'm super excited about them. A little worried about the fact that they're on uniques. That's going to make uniques very greatly swinging in how much they're worth. But we'll see. They look pretty good. I'm very entertained by them. Right, is anyone not playing private leagues right now? Because these private league things are just, with the amount of the cheapness of them, to me, is really something that I'm enjoying. They really are actually cheap.
If you break down the costs for single players per day,
like if I want to pay for 50 people to play for 20 days on my own, that's expensive. But if I crowdsource it and 40 people want to split a payment, it costs everyone nothing. It's fantastic. It's like so cheap.
So you basically answered the question whether you're happy about the feature and whether the monetization model is acceptable. Oh, what a nice cat!
It's
my turn. It's my turn. I'll be back.
This is a small one. Hello. She weighs 6 kilos.
Wow. Well, let me get mine.
She's only 2 years old, though. Not even that. Yeah. What did I miss?
Now I'll struggle with putting the headphones on. Holy shit. Down. This is a big one as well.
Oh, we're showing each other our pussies. That's so good. Holy shit. Monka TOS, dude.
important.
Very important podcast break.
Well, that's what happens when that's why I try to aim for 2 hours total duration, because if it goes beyond 2 hours, then people will have to go to the bathroom and bring.
Clearly. Yeah, we have to bring our cat. Where did Balor go?
Balor also wanted to go to the bathroom. He was.
I thought he was going to get the cat.
Oh, maybe he's also. He said it's. Balor literally said it's my turn now, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to run for the pussy or run for the toilets.
Maybe combined, but yeah.
Maybe combined.
But
Where did he end?
I think he was talking about how he thinks that the monetization model is acceptable in the sense that it's actually very cheap to run a custom league if you break it down per player.
Per player, yes, but I don't know. I feel that this is something we've asked for, right? Not we, but the community has asked for this, so we get it, which is nice. Oh, he did not bring a cat. All right, so Balor doesn't have a cat confirmed. All right, we know who the two superior player is here.
Yep.
So to bring it back to the topic,
dog because they love you back.
Right.
But anyway.
So where were we? Right. So I feel like the community has asked for this, and that's fine and all, right? I think it's good that they're providing us with content that we're asking for. To some degree, that's good, right? However, I also feel that this is the type of content that caters better to certain communities. And I'm not saying certain specific people, I'm saying certain communities, as in the way that the communities that are able to crowdfund this and actually generate a fairly big community, or, well, private league would actually be really cool with it. It also caters to the group self-founds. There are a lot of people I play with that I talked with that has guild self-found, which this is a perfect way to do it. They can make an exact copy of the current league, but make it guild self-found. So they would make their own private market with only certain people in it, which I think is really awesome. I think that the prices is for those people quite acceptable, to be honest. It's not that bad. But ultimately, I feel that this caters best to bigger content creators and streamers and YouTubers that is able to create their own little private league, which I think is cool and all. I like the idea of it. It also caters very well to Havok's private races, for example. But the problem with it is that it does affect the current market and of the actual leagues of the game. As long as as soon as private leagues kicks in, that means people are getting removed from the parental leagues. No matter how small the impact is, there will be an impact, and we'll see how much that's going to be noticed.
Is that even really a bad thing? I mean, markets adjust. Just if there are less Combs hearts on the market, and then they're worth slightly more. And
well,
that's better if you're one of the people who find them, and slightly worse if you're somebody who's trying to buy it. But markets adjust. So I don't think it's really a problem.
I don't think it's a problem at the start. I absolutely don't think that's going to be impacting the market enough for us to even notice it. What I think it will do is what I fear, and that is that we're in a situation where generally we have 3 months lasting league, right? And 3 to 4 weeks into league, that's when you start to barely notice a small decline of people playing. About 6 weeks in, 6 to 7 weeks in, then you can actually truly notice it on a lot of aspects of the game that the market is slowing down drastically. And then 8 to 9 weeks into a league, then the league, trade-wise and activity-wise, is really affected. Now, this obviously does not affect solo self-found. This is very strictly affecting hardcore, because I don't have that much experience with softcore. But hardcore leagues, that's basically how it goes. And you guys, I'm sure you guys can verify this as well. What I fear is that with the introduction of the private leagues, is that once we've reached the point where the league is slowing down, that people would rather look to play other games, which is usually what's causing the decline of activity of people, will now instead be more interested in playing the private leagues, making sure, or well, causing a situation where the decline of people happens faster in bulks and, you know, maybe even sooner. And they're saying in chat that that's about the same time plan happening with the decline of people in softcore as well. So what this means is that this will affect the market in a faster way. The longevity of a league is at least trade leagues are based off the trade activities. In my opinion, it's a lot of the longevity is based around how much access you have to the trades, which is declining after this time, and it will then continue on to faster cause this issue and make this issue a bigger issue. And no matter if it's just 100 people doing it, but it could also be a situation where 1,000 people are doing it. And no matter how many people are doing it, it will impact the market. It will impact this decline of people faster than originally. And that's the problem I have with it. I don't think it's a bad thing that it's introduced. I'm just saying we should be prepared for faster decline of people in the trade leagues, or in the parental leagues at least.
Yeah, that'll probably happen. I don't know. I'll probably be one of the people who leave at the 9 to 10 week mark, somewhere around there. 8 to 10 maybe.
Leave the temp league and come into a new private league, or?
Yeah, make a private league. I expect it'll definitely affect the trade market somewhat, but it'll keep people. I think it'll keep people engaged with the game longer, which from GGG's standpoint is way better.
Obviously,
as far as longevity of the league goes, overall, I'll probably end up wanting to play it and being more comfortable playing for longer because I get to restart in a private league. So yeah, I'll be one of the people that leave the trade league, but still going to be enjoying the game.
No, obviously. But then again, are you feeling or fearing that with a trade league mindset, at least? I personally am not a person that enjoys playing solo self at all. I play trade leagues mainly because I make guides, right? And I want to have access to the items I need to make a guide without needing to farm them and get unlucky or lucky to get it sorted right. So that's my play. That's the way I play the game. And so solo self is completely out of the question for me. But that means that if I were to play in the league and then play in a new league and resetting everything, I'm very certain that I would burn out faster than ever by resetting the league or the game more often for me. I'll play the real one for 2 months. I'll play a new one for 1 month and back on the new one again. I think that I would burn out very fast doing that. And I'm not sure what your opinion is.
I feel like that'll make me last longer because I really enjoy that initial setup, not having anything being consistently weaker everywhere because I don't have access to gear. I like that struggle. And so I think that would keep me more engaged.
What's your take, Catmaster? Like from both aspects, like from what we talked about, like everything.
Well, the player retention in ongoing leagues?
Yeah, and then what your take is on it in terms of longevity for you regarding burning outs. But yeah, the player retention, what's your take on that one?
Well, I agree with everything that's been said. The player retention throughout the league, especially for trade leagues, is a problem because especially in hardcore trade temp leagues, try doing meaningful trades at this point in the league. It's just not going to happen. But I think that's more pronounced in incursion. I mean, that may be more perceived in incursion than it's normally because not incursion, sorry. Always mix up incursion and delve in my head. Because in delve, a lot of people went to softcore, right? A lot of people early on decided hardcore is not for this league and we want to go softcore. That's why maybe right now it may seem like more of a problem to people where normally it's not as intense. But I can certainly see the custom leagues, being held by community members or something like that to be like additional. Please, cat, don't press my buttons. No, I lost track. I can see that incentivizing people to leave earlier, like people who say, "Oh, I'm burned out on this league. I may or may not stop playing the league in a week or two," and then all of a sudden, "Oh, my favorite streamer is making my favorite league. I'm out here."
But we don't have access to old leagues.
No, I mean my favorite mods. I agree.
Your favorite mods being making the game harder, which I think is good because the Private League is only stops making the game harder for you. Nothing that actually increases the rewards in any sort of kind of way.
Yeah, but I mean my favorite mods in the sense that it's like the mods that make the game more fun for me. I didn't mean like. I mean, it would be awesome if we could make Breach League again or something like that, but certainly they'd have to revisit a lot of the old mechanics and values and stuff for things in order to make it balanced. And then again, like you said, they don't want to make the game easier, and they don't want to cause an influx of league exclusive uniques that you wouldn't be able to get as easily into the permanent leagues, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what I'm trying to say is it can potentially lead to people who wanted to leave even earlier. And then instead of actually, and that ties into a different problem that I see, instead of actually going and saying, okay, I'm going to take the time off of PoE because I'm done with the league. I'm going to play X game. I'm going to play Fallout. I'm going to play whatever is hot right now. They may actually end up playing PoE nonstop. They will actually play custom leagues until the next league comes out. And I see a problem where people that normally follow the regular cycle of 3 months leagues, burning out, stopping for the last month, and then returning for the new league. I can see that people would now play out until they burn out so bad that they're not coming back for the next league.
Yeah, I was talking to a few guys about this, and the general consensus from the people that I've talked to, excluding BalorMage now, has mentioned that this break cycle, a 3-month period, and then having a break before the next league is healthy for a game, especially as an ARPG game like Path of Exile, where it is a lot of repetitive, endless grinding of doing the same thing over and over and over again. So having a break is healthy to let you recuperate before you go back in and do the same thing again with a few variations. And I agree with that. I'm not sure I will ever touch a private league, if I'm going to be completely honest. I might do it for the sake of race events, like Havoc has a really good setup for, and that's probably going to be utilizing the private leagues for this. It's going to be amazing to see, and I would love to participate in such thing. But I don't think that I would ever create a league or join a league for the sake of playing, like you said, BalorMage, we're resetting it. But then again, you enjoy doing that for your sake of enjoying the playstyle for you that I don't like at all. I do love the restart of it, but I would like a market for it, and I don't want to jump into a smaller version of a league. Then I'd rather just consistently play the league I'm playing in, because that's the way I would enjoy it more. And I know for a fact that the way I burned out last time, I feel that I would burn out so fast if I played and reset it again to then just reset a month later. No matter the time span of this, I know that I would burn out so fast. And I think that a lot of people who haven't burned out or hasn't burned out yet would be in a risk zone of burning out because of them playing consistently 24/7. And maybe not even coming back for a league or 2 or 3 even, or even at all, because they burn themselves out and kill their enjoyment of the game because they're just playing it 24/7. That's how I think it will go, at least. But
Yeah.
there's always pros and cons of a reset. Like for a lot of people, it's refreshing. Like for BalorMage, it's a new thing. Like it's the enjoyment of restarting the progression. But you're also a player, as far as I know, that enjoys playing solo self-found, which I completely loathe.
I only enjoy solo self-found if it's race time, really, because I can't find a full team most of the time to do races with, and trying to race with just 1 or 2 people in a trade league, I don't stand a chance. So I like solo self-found because it lets me race on even footing with people. But I wouldn't play solo self-found for any other thing, really. I tried it this league in hardcore. I started in hardcore solo self-found, and kind of regret that. And then by the time I wanted to merge over, merging was disabled, and that's part of what led me to restart in softcore. So I couldn't even merge over to hardcore. I wasn't going to start in hardcore again. And I was like, oh, bugger it. But yeah, I don't know. Outside of racing, I don't like solo self-found that much.
I really like starting new, but I agree that would have been, if that had happened to me, it would have been a reason for me to start in softcore over. Because while I like new starts, I like to have that even footing that you were talking about. I like to start at the same time as everyone else, which there's one positive aspect that I see. People who can't start the league on time with the official league start will now be able to have their own league start like a week in or something like that, because they had whatever exams or important job assignments or something like that, and or they weren't able to take vacation. It won't be the same thing.
Like postponing your league start. Like, I just want to, because we saw it in the chat here, there was someone, let's see, Dukes said that, so if you're a new player and don't start in a league at the start of it, you won't get a good game experience, question mark. So I wrote the answer to him, and there was a few others, Patona's helping out as well. So I want to include this in my comment, and that is the fact that you don't need to be in the league start to have a good start of the league and enjoy the game, especially not as a new player, because everything is new and brand refreshing and it's exciting, right? But once you played a handful of leagues and you're getting a lot of experience in the game, at least for me, and I think most people agree, even BalorMage in this, even if you're a person that enjoys solo self-found aspect of it, would agree and say that the most fun we have in a league is usually at the start of the league, right? Not just because of the vast amount of players there, but because of the available options you have to play, that you can play. You can race, you can do get to tier 16, within the couple of days to sell those bank currency and play from there. You have a wide market to play with. The trading is active. Everything is completely different than how it will be in 8 weeks later. But that's also what brings me into the point where choosing when your league starts going to be by having a private league means that you get rid of all that, because the private league you're playing means that you will have a lot less players than the actual main league, so to say, and it's going to affect the market. It was you, Balor, said that you had
even if a bunch of different streamers went in together and made the biggest community you could possibly imagine trying to start a private league server, I couldn't imagine it being more than 3,000 or 4,000 people at most, which is nothing compared to what a normal league start is.
Exactly, and that puts you in the situation you have where you wanted to change your shafts for an anvil, for example, which affects the market, and that creates a completely different, let's say, surrounding of the game. The misc stuff around the game, the trading aspect, you have to view it in a completely different way because of the size of the league, which means that it's going to be a different type of gaming, which could be very fun for that matter as well. Like you said, you would enjoy it because you have no use of it. For example, you'd rather trade that. You'd rather trade one of those unique items for a Stib Knight flask of staunching, right? And I mean, and that's really cool and really interesting in that way. And the thing is, the most fun you would have is in the league start. I'm not sure. I like the fact that we have the availability to it, but it's going to be very interesting to see how it will affect the game. But the only thing that I'm concerned about is people who hasn't really experienced burning out on something when they first burn out on a game, how they will cope with it, because it's pretty heavy. It's heavy when you burn out on a game, especially something you love and have played for many, many years. So I don't know. It has its pros and cons, like everything else, of course.
Yep. I agree. I personally have relatively directly after the feature has been released, have started in a max. I can't talk anymore. We're closing in on the 3-hour mark.
Oh Jesus!
I personally started in an all mods league, like really hardest possible, like all the highest tiers: monster life, monster damage, monster speed, elemental damage, reduced resist, famine, no stash, and everything that Jorma's a longtime viewer and stream supporter of mine, and possibly of other streams as well, has started. And the problem that I saw with it, but I think that's probably because it was just a fresh feature, is that most people that started in Jorma's league eventually died and then didn't re-roll in that league, but went to a bigger streamers league because there was more people to interact with and like more action on the ladder. And every person who left the league made that decision easier for the next person to leave the league, right? And at this point, it's really only Jawmass and myself playing. And I feel like that's probably a trend that happened to many custom leagues, that, you know, the smaller leagues died out faster because people went to the bigger leagues.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, people are like all going crazy. I like the ladder approach to it, because the ladder, that's one of the things that is enjoyable, even if when you're not racing. Now, I've been part of the racing scene a few times when I've had the time, and I've died on, you know, rank 1 positions a few times, so it's been sad. But even when I'm not racing, I'm still enjoying watching the ladder. You know, this player is the first one to reach level 95. I'm like, oh shit, he's going there. Oh, level 99 just died. You know, yeah, shit out of luck. I'm so sorry for that guy. You know, that's
server messages in the race is so good to watch, even if you're not
and that's entertaining.
Really enjoy it.
They're not in the custom leagues yet, right? Like the first to enter this or that. First, really?
First to enter. I don't think I saw those.
Exactly, the death announcements are there, but the first to enter are not.
First to delves are there. I'm getting delve notifications.
But that's a leaderboard implement, so
yeah.
But I understand as well that people want to go to the more active ones because of the interaction and trading, for that matter, which means that you'd rather play in a more active server, even if it's private one, which would then emphasize that the private leagues would, in that case, cater to people that want to do guild self-found or solo self-found with very limited, with very hard mods, or for the masochist players that just wants really hard content, but they will then lose out on the player interaction and the trading aspect of the game. Or it's catering to the bigger streamer and content creator communities. They are the people that are able to make use of this and can also crowdfund it fairly easily, depending on how big they are, right? Which means that the content itself is, by default, catering mostly to the bigger content creators, because most players that are playing these private leagues would be people of the bigger communities. If you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong. Because let's say there's I'm not sure how many people Ciceron got, 1.5, 2,000 people in his league. And he's a big streamer, right? So he's got a really big private. Yeah, he's got a really big private league. I'm very certain that there is not even close to 1,000 people combined playing.
I think Ciceron and Don the Crown have the biggest ones, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that it's just gathering like that, and they are active because of the amount of people, which means that other people creating leagues would be, you know, a handful of people, maybe a guild here and there, maybe a group of friends of those 6 people, those 6 imaginary friends we all got today. And, you know, at that point, but it's not more. And like you said as well, Kat, where the smaller ones dies faster, or is in a risk of dying earlier or prematurely, and once it's about to die, it will rapidly die from that point, right? There's only like 100 people in maps in Sicily. I'm not sure what the mods are. I haven't actually checked it out, but I'm just saying that it's big enough to keep up a longevity of it till the next league it comes out.
Yeah. Having a lot of people certainly makes it a lot better, but
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I would not be playing PoE right now if it wasn't for private leagues. I would have figured out how to get my Lost Ark account back, or bought a new one or something, and I'd have kept doing that instead. But because
I'm playing Fallout,
I had a reason to I had a reason to come back and play, and I'm super enjoying it.
Like, as long as I don't have anything to do in the current league, which I don't feel like that I do, I'd rather play something else to recuperate and feel, recovered and refreshed. Not recovered and fresh when I go into the new league in 20 days. So I will be playing some PoE, but I will mostly play other games, I think, and relax.
20 more days.
Yes, it's 20 more days. And then again, I will be going through details, and they will be releasing information. And as soon as we get more intel, there will be a lot of theory crafting, updating things. You know, the last week, which is in 2 weeks from now, will be heavily PoE focused. You know, there's a lot of PoE content during these 20 days. Not to, you guys know this, but for the new players, but just because Betrayal releases in about 21 days doesn't mean that there's no PoE content until 21 days. There will be a lot of things happening during these days, and that's basically how I'm covering, or how I do it, because I don't want to play PoE every day all the time. I want to have something else to do. I want to play something else. I've been playing Last Epoch. That's an ARPG game as well, but just to play something else is really nice. And Last Epoch is actually really nice. If you guys haven't checked it out, it's definitely do that. So I mean, it's just it's really nice to have something to, I want to say relax and chill with, but the better word is recuperate. Just recover from the PoE time, and then go heavily back into it when the new release comes out. That's how it's treated, at least.
Yeah, it's a decent plan.
I'm not sure. It's very hard for me to check out new games or different games. I've been playing the Steep Rock Galactic a little bit, but it gets old really quickly because it's a co-op game with dwarves and mining around. It's super fun. You should check it out, but it's you need to play it with other people. If you play it alone, it's kind of sad. But it is designed around playing with randoms, so that's great. If you're not Australian, I guess.
Yep. I just got a question about you being Australian, BalorMage. Are you wearing thongs right now?
Okay, just leave out what they actually are. No.
You're not wearing thongs?
No.
Okay.
Another real quick closing question. You met Slippery Jim IRL the other day. How was that, BalorMage?
I did. That was interesting. He's really tall.
What? Really?
What?
You wouldn't assume that.
We stood up, and for a minute, I thought that my legs didn't work and that I hadn't stood up properly, and then he had, because I was looking up like this.
Because on the photo on your Twitter, he looks way smaller than you.
Well,
or he doesn't look that much taller.
We were sitting down.
Oh, okay.
When we stood up, my head ended about here on him.
I can't see. I have to wait for the stream.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, it was. He's very tall, and apparently on the way there, somebody yelled out "Hello, Jesus" to him because he's got like a beard and long hair, and he's walking along in a coat.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Thought that was pretty funny.
I'm sure that happened to Project PT back in the day a lot in Portugal.
Yeah.
Jesus. But yeah, I think we should be smart and not stretch it any further. But I did have a glorious time, and I want to thank you guys both for coming on the podcast and having this awesome natural conversation that was only very little corrected in the flow. There was the very little correction that we had to do. We naturally reached our goals, even though we sidetracked quite a bit.
We're over time a little, aren't we?
What was the estimated time for this?
Well, the estimated is 3 hours because, ideally we'd be below 2 hours, but realistically, it has happened very rarely that, especially when you get new people on the podcast that you haven't talked to before, there's just a lot of things to talk about and to catch up on, even if it's not related directly to the immediate topics of the podcast.
Yeah.
It's easier when you already know each other, when you did a couple of podcasts together to not go off topic too hard, because there's just less of the permanent topics like what do we start off with the free-to-play topic, for instance. That's a classic. But if we happen to come together in the same constellation, we probably won't have that conversation anymore because we know each other's opinions on it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Speaking of which, appreciate the invitation. I had a good time. So thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, awesome. I think we did really
super fun.
Did really make some production value happen today. Yeah, also thanks to all the viewers. Guys, don't forget to follow both GhazzyTV and BalorMage on both Twitter and Twitch. This is actually the first episode where all participants have the same handle on all three, like on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. So it was a lot easier. I don't have to include separate links with the different names. Or if you guys just Google the name that is under the picture of the person that you like, then you'll find the Twitter and Twitch accounts.
Yep.
That said, this will be on YouTube. So for the people who are watching from YouTube, thanks for the thumbs up and the comments. If you have any questions, any remarks for the broadcasters, for the producer, you can tell me how shitty my layouts look or something like that. And there's one more thing that I always want to say in the end. But I'm probably gonna.
You forgot it. But you forgot it.
Probably.
Okay. Sorry.
But yeah, you can catch any of us on Twitch. We're all streaming daily, mostly Path of Exile, but also interesting other stuff. So yeah, thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.